some time, but unclear if this is going to be successful in helping them move past this controversy. I'm skeptical.
They had this big, Murdoch set this trap for Trump. He set a perfect trap to have the Keebler elves surround him, the Lilliputians, right, to surround him in this thing and to try to take him down. The Murdochs, remember, did I mention they were foreigners? Have I mentioned that yet? The Murdochs have this plan to thwart and stop Trump. And they don't care who their instrument is. It could be DeSantis before the robot, rusted. And now they're going to go to Youngkin or, Tim Scott, you pick it, right?
There's no one who hates Trump more than the Murdochs. I got fired in April of 2023. In May of 2023, they asked me to run for president against Trump and said they would back me. Obviously, I'm not running for any, I would never get elected anyway. Plus, I like Trump. I mean, that's the funny thing is I actually genuinely, I get frustrated. I'm frustrated now.
So hold on. I'm sorry. Trump. You just said that and they asked you to run for president against Trump, the Murdochs.
Yeah. Lachlan Murdoch said you should run for president. We'll back you. The whole thing, the whole
Fox News apparatus,
and not just Fox, but Wall Street Journal,
all of their papers,
Times
everything.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll back you.
And that came right from.
You should do that. I was already gone. They'd already canceled my show. I was still under contract, but they canceled my show. You should run. We support you. You should run.
We want to stop Trump.
Yeah. Well, he was running.
Welcome. It's Friday, 18 July, the year of our Lord 2025. We're so jammed with news today, and my co-host Natalie Winters, who will be doing the bulk of the show a little bit later, is with me. Jack Posobiec's with me. So I have preached this gospel for a long time, and last night we saw it in all its ugliness. The Murdochs hate Trump. The Murdochs want to take down Trump, and this is why on this Epstein and everything, including the rest of the going after the deep state, we have to be on offense all the time. Last night, they put up a phony letter, which I understand from senior sources working with President Trump. They never even showed the letter. They don't even know if they have the letter. They may be doing the letter from something that people told them about. President Trump had discussions with senior people at the Wall Street Journal, which is always the instrument they're going to take out MAGA and to take out Trump, right? The sharpest tool that they've got. They used the New York Post as more of a populist entity. And, of course, Fox News is for rhinos. But the Wall Street Journal is the neoliberal, neocon, sharp end of the stick that they come after Trump. And last night they tried to actually destroy him with what looks like a phony and fake letter. President Trump has put him on blast, put Murdoch on blast, particularly as I have long recommended. Those clips right there are over a number of years. And who had the stones to stand up to Murdoch? So most of these guys are still sucking up to Fox and sucking up to the Wall Street Journal. Quite frankly, the Murdochs concocted something last night and thought it'd be a kill shot on President Trump. And lo and behold, it's the exact opposite, because President Trump is now on offense of what we said should be done. The Attorney General should go to the judge and release not just grand jury, but ask him to unveil all of the evidence, all of the sealed evidence. They should petition it to release all the sealed evidence, right? And then there's much more they can do, but start with that. I got Natalie, Jack Posobiec. Poso, you've taken a lot of grief. We don't have Trump's back. In fact, we made the recommendations that are the best for President Trump in this movement, which is President Trump is best when it's attack, attack, attack. This is the deep state. This is the ruling class in America. They're trying to use it to destroy President Trump. And last night, I think he understood of the Wall Street Journal, as much as he's tried to do in the big, beautiful bill and these other things to get supply-side tax cuts, as much as he's tried to do, it's never enough, because he has a populist nationalist movement and they hate. And this is old man Murdoch, who made the decision to come after President Trump. And I understand the lawsuit that they're putting together is going to be absolutely incredible. And you saw President Trump in True Social this morning. He can't wait to get Rupert Murdoch on the stand. Murdoch squirmed out of having to do the Dominion thing because of the emails that Rupert Murdoch said we're going to make Trump a non-person, but he ain't going to get away from Trump this time. Poso, where are we in all this, sir?
Steve, I'll tell you where we are. We're so back. Look, everyone is firing on all cylinders. The MAGA movement is completely united behind this fight right now. And, when I look at some of this, heard about this story coming out earlier in the day yesterday and spoke with a number of high-level contacts as well. I know you did. And I said, wait a minute, what do they have? And I kept getting back, they don't have anything. They have a story about a thing. And I said, well, where did they get this? And then it comes out that it's this letter that nobody's actually seen. I said, wait a minute. So what is your source if you don't actually have the letter? And I'm starting to think, Steve, I put this up on Twitter last night, that the source has something to do with former elements of the Department of Justice. I tweeted out last night that it sounds like their source might be Ghislaine Maxwell over some prison phone or something like this, because they don't have the letter. The White House asked for the letter. They wouldn't produce the letter. They wouldn't show this thing. They don't know where this is coming from. They've got a source. They claim it's Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe. I don't know. Then you've got the great Susan Crabtree. She sends me a message. She's got it up now as well over at Real Clear Politics, saying that the author of this report at the Wall Street Journal is a former member of the Department of Justice who was directly tied to who? Glenn Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS. And we know that Fusion GPS, the Steele dossier, this also came up through the Wall Street Journal, through so many of these sources, so through many of the same channels. So I would love to see that if there is this lawsuit, if it does go forward, and I certainly hope that it does, I want to see the names. I want to see this connection. So the individual's name here, Joe Palazzo. Joe Palazzo is someone we need to look at. Listen to this. Joined the Wall Street Journal in 2010 from trade publication Main Justice, where he covered the U.S. Justice Department. He was over at the U.S. Justice Department prior to all of this. And you know, it's really, really interesting. The Main Justice was Glenn Simpson's wife's publication. Simpson founded Fusion GPS. So there's a lot of connections, very strange connections here, Steve.
Fusion. Natalie's going to be with us. She's going to come in right after the break. This thing stinks to high heaven. Fusion GPS is about as dirty a political operative as you can possibly get. This all goes back to them. It turns out they never showed the letter to President Trump. He's got them on blast. They're going to put the Wall Street Journal, they're going to drop a suit on the Wall Street Journal and on Murdoch personally. My understanding is President Trump tried to engage with the senior levels and say, hey, show us what you got before you publish something. No, but they've been rumoring this, this is going to be things so big. It was a dud, a complete dud. I mean, do anybody think Trump talks like that or writes like that? It's absurd. And they don't have any proof. This thing is a complete debacle, but it showed their hands. This is why we advocated from the beginning, Jack, be on offense, be on offense, be on offense. They're trying to set a million traps, and there are more traps out there. The best way to get around these traps is go on offense. Attack, attack, attack. That's the mode that Trump's best in. And it's the Murdochs that are coming after you because they're the heads of the ruling class. They're the media arm, the propaganda arm for the ruling class. They're out there in Sun Valley at the Billionaires Conference with all these tech billionaires and all the tech bros plotting. And the more President Trump does for them, the more they want to destroy him. We're going to take a short commercial break. We'll return. Natalie Winters is actually co-hosting today, riding shotgun for the first part. She's going to take over. Eduardo Bolsonaro is going to join us. They're going after his father after President Trump supports him in Brazil. Short break. Back in a moment.
host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The Brazilian government has cracked down hard, essentially worse than house arrest on President Bolsonaro with a brutal kind of suppression or repression today. Eduardo's going to join us here in a little while. And this is a part of it is about Bolsonaro. The other part is about the BRICS nations. This is why now more than ever, you got to get up to speed on this. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon, End of the Dollar Empire. We're working on the 8th free installment. You get 7. But understand gold versus the dollar, right? If you understand gold versus the dollar, you'll understand not just the price today, but where the price is headed and where the value in gold is as a hedge. Make sure you do it and talk to Philip Patron team, but do that today. This thing with the BRICS nations is about to heat up. And President Trump's just not going to sit there and have these guys essentially put Bolsonaro in prison while he's on trial, which is what they're doing. Natalie Winters is hosting today. I wasn't supposed to be here. I had some things to do this morning, but jumping in here because of the fiasco last night with the Murdochs. Natalie, you're out of hair and makeup. Are we ready for the close-up, ma'am? You ready to
I think you take longer to get ready than I do, but I digress.
You hold it. Are you saying I have more product? I use more product in my hair?
I think so. Yeah, that's more credible than the Wall Street Journal story.
Well, let's talk about that. You and I have been hammering these people for a long time. Talk to me about where does this story come from, and to know the shoddy nature of how they dealt with President Trump. This is the most upsetting thing. Not only does it look like where are the sources of this, where's actually this letter, where's this picture, where's all this that they allege. Also, the cast of characters in the back of it, ma'am.
Sure. Well, it's not journalism, right? It's information warfare. I think that's pretty clear. The lack of sources, the outlet that it's coming from. And I think if you trace it back, sort of what Jack was alluding to, right? The links to Fusion GPS, the Steele dossier, what was sort of the, I would say, Achilles heel of that whole information laundering operation, besides the fact, obviously, that all the information was fake, but it was that they put it through BuzzFeed, right? No one cared about BuzzFeed. They thought it was a joke of a publication, but they put it through BuzzFeed because they were willing to publish it because they had such low editorial standards. So I think there's sort of an interesting correction, right, from the deep state's efforts to sort of attack President Trump. So now they're going with a more reputable outlet, right, laundering it through the Wall Street Journal. But as Jack was alluding to, it's still the same characters with these ties, these vestiges, to really the same apparatus that isn't explicitly democratic. And frankly, it's not even explicitly domestic. I think it represents more of the global elite. But to add on to what Jack was saying, this reporter, right, it's a dual bylined author. So the individual, the man who was on this, the guy by the name of Joe, he actually was part of the Wall Street Journal, leading to the reporting that actually led to the first trial of President Trump, the one relating to Stormy Daniels and the payments. And don't just take my word for it. The New York Magazine and a host of other sort of legacy media outlets did glowing profiles on this guy. He actually earned the Pulitzer Prize for these contributions, saying that he, quote, helped set in motion the first criminal prosecution of a sitting president. And his findings were actually included, and if not really compromised or constituted the backbone of a lot of DA Bragg's case against President Trump. So sure, maybe you just want to call this guy a partisan hack, but I think the critique of him is sort of more acute than that, right? And that he is a hatchet man designed, part of that apparatus, to come after President Trump, weaponize information. But Steve, I also think it's worth noting too, taking a step back, that this is sort of an effort to make the whole Epstein saga now about President Trump and a stupid birthday card and sort of, memeify it into a silly picture. This is about the intel agencies, foreign and domestic, and that's what we need to be focusing on. And that's what I think Pam Bondi's unsealing of a lot of these transcripts, the grand jury stuff, that's a good start, but we need to go in that direction and not let this get reduced into some sort of tabloid-esque story that they're trying to make it out to be.
Natalie, and I'll get Jack in here on the same question. The lack of respect they have for the MAGA movement and for the MAGA information, warfare department is shown in selection of these authors and writers. They're not even hiding it. I mean, and this is why I said the other day down in Tampa, we have to go after the deep state. If we don't take it apart on President Trump's watch, no matter if this watch ends with this term or he has another, if we don't take it down on President Trump's watch, it will envelop us. It's over. This is our shot. And you saw right there how brazen they are to pull people and institutions. And the Wall Street Journal is supposed to be so revered. I mean, this was a political operative, deep state intelligence services hit job using the Wall Street Journal as its platform, was it not, ma'am?
Well, obviously, I mean, look at the selective standards in terms of publishing, whether it was the Hunter Biden hard drive, the origins of COVID, right? I think everything with the legacy media, it's not necessarily just straight up lies, right? It's lies of omission, and timing is everything. But Steve, I think the concerning point, and it's right, it's why we've been calling for sort of a special prosecutor, a special counsel investigation into a lot of this stuff, is that I think the fact that the Trump administration is sort of misdiagnosing the importance of the Epstein files, to me, suggests that they don't understand the core issue as to why his base is so galvanized over it. And it's because it gets to the heart of the issue, right, which is who runs this country. And I think you're sort of seeing a, shall we say, softening or whitewashing of a lot of these core issues. I mean, take, for example, the immigration front, right? I'm not even talking amnesty, but when you see this being reframed to strategic deportations or just focusing on the criminals, that misses the forest for the trees. People are animated about the immigration issue because of cultural factors and wanting to preserve their country. It's not merely a function of criminality and economic statistics. That's part of it. So that's why I think this is concerning on both ends, right? The deep state isn't softening up. They're not taking this as, oh, look, the Trump administration, they don't want to, dive into the Epstein files. Let's just move on. How sick is that they're now weaponizing this against him, and the Trump administration is just putting out posts saying, oh, it's a hoax, let's move on. The reason why we know the other hoaxes that he called out are hoaxes are because we actually had the information released to prove that. And a lot of that information is the information that we are now using on the show currently to disprove these current allegations, because they're all coming from the Russia hoax, the Fusion GPS hoax, the Steele dossier, the Hillary Clinton ties. So this is why we're advocating for transparency. So yes, I blame the Wall Street Journal. This is obviously a bogus story, but I think it's not a ridiculous assertion to sit here and say that the Trump administration needs to get their act together and release these documents, release the relevant information. It's what his base wants, not because we're crazy, but because we understand who rules this country. And by the way, President Trump, if you don't, just look at how they're coming after you in the Wall Street Journal this morning, or last night, rather.
Yeah, look at it. Everything President Trump's done, the supply side tax cut, all of it, the issues this week on the Genius Act, it's never enough. They're trying to store him. Jack, Natalie's hit the core point of it. This is why we called for a special prosecutor for everything, for to go back to Crossfire Hurricane, to the bogus leak of the dossier, the Steele dossier, all of it, because it's all of a piece. This is how they're coming after Trump to destroy him and the MAGA movement, sir.
Steve, when you look at the links directly tying these operatives, the Steele dossier, Crossfire Hurricane, the hoax, it seems as though some of the statements, if you go back and look at what President Trump was talking about, it actually looks like this is what he was referring to all along, because you can see the direct, here we are less than 12 hours after this thing dropped, and boom, direct link to Fusion GPS, direct link to the Steele dossier. This stuff gets purported. And of course, when we have information, when we've got files, documents, all of it, the media says, oh, don't look at that. Don't look at all that stuff. Forget about that. But they've got a source of a source of a source when they can't even provide what they have because they don't have the goods. All of a sudden, that gets full billing. But even the Democrats yesterday, I got to say, they were running around and they couldn't answer the question. Why didn't you release any of this stuff when you had full control of the government for 4 years? If President Trump was implicated in any of these files, and I've said this throughout, I said this for years, if he was implicated in these files, why did you sit on it? Why wouldn't Merrick Garland release it? Why you wouldn't have needed a Fusion GPS? You wouldn't have needed this phony story about Russians and Moscow Tower and all the rest. You wouldn't have needed any of that if there was some direct nefarious link to the Epstein files. No, you also certainly wouldn't need of Merrick Garland and these 4 trumped up ridiculous cases all throughout the country in 2023 and 2024. And by the way, I'll even go a step further. You got Douglas. I thought this was a meme. I just saw this. Douglas Murray is up there in the New York Post last night. He's got a thing. Post 11:45 p.m. It says, how many voters really care about Jeffrey Epstein? How many voters really care about Jeffrey Epstein? There's an actual guy in the New York Post from Douglas Murdoch. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been to Epstein Island, Douglas? I mean, this is ridiculous. It's so, and they're treating you like fools. They're treating the American people like fools. They're treating the MAGA movement like fools. And let me tell you something. MAGA hat stays on, all right? The MAGA hat stays on. The MAGA hat is fully on. We're locked in. We're focused. And we'll see. We'll see, guys. Give us your best shot because we ain't going anywhere.
When we come back, I want to talk about continuing on offense. What President Trump is talking about is a massive civil suit against Murdoch's in the Wall Street Journal. This is why we need a special prosecutor. We need to ramp this up to criminal. We need to see all the interconnections here and what they did. First off, the letter's looks like it's completely made up because nobody's seen it. But even when made up, it's irrelevant. They're just trying to stir the pot here, and this is what happens when you don't stay on offense. President Trump and the MAGA movement is best on offense. And all those that said, hey, let's move along. No, this is a centerpiece of the deep state trying to destroy Trump, going to destroy Trump, and going to destroy the MAGA movement. This is why I said in Tampa the other day, you got to do it. You got to do it now. And look, it's going to be unpleasant, but big deal. We've gone through enough. We've gone through unpleasant stuff before, but you have to attack. And now we need the apparatus for criminal charges and criminal investigations. Civil is fine, but civil's not going to do it. Okay, short commercial break. Take your phone out. Bannon, 989898. Text it. Birch Gold. How to invest in gold and precious metals in the age of Trump. Particularly what's going on in Brazil right now, folks. Look at it. This is the BRICS nations rising up and trying to thwart the U.S. dollar. Short break. Back in a moment.
your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Jack, I want to talk about staying on offense here and what needs to be done, because it's great that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is going to go petition the court to release the grand jury testimony. Also, I think simultaneously she's got to look to unveil all the evidence that's under seal, to unseal it. But there's much more to do here. What is your recommendation?
Look, I think a lot of this comes down to a guy who's already on board with the AG's office over there at the Department of Justice, Ed Martin. You got Ed Martin over there. He was the one who was looking at pardons. Why not appoint Ed Martin to run a task force into Epstein, find out everything that was going on, find out everything that was there, find out everything that is releasable, protect the victims, of course, but then go after anything that they've got out, whether it's grand jury that needs to be petitioned. Okay, you go and make that petition. Then if you've got information, if you've got interviews, if you've got videos, boom, make it out. Ed Martin, I think the man for the job is already there.
Yeah, Thune's got to bring Judge Jeanine for a vote like ASAP. She came out of committee yesterday for confirmation on that fiasco they had with Emil Bovee. And boy, I would love to have Emil Bovee. I understand they're teeing him up for the Supreme Court, but man, we need Emil Bovee right now. But Judge Jeanine, Thune's got to call the Senate together and vote on her like Monday or Tuesday or over the weekend. Don't go home. Like, vote on her immediately. We need Judge Jeanine. You need Ed Martin. I know. And for all the people sitting there going, he's not thinking about special powers, there are people arguing against that. I understand that. And people that are very smart inside the administration and close to President Trump. But there are also other people arguing for it. And I think our arguments far outweigh the negatives. Jack, also other means of staying on offense. Right now, the MAGA movement's got to come together. For all those people who said just nothing to see here, they're going to use everything they can to destroy Trump on every element. And this is why it's got to be raised up to the level of a criminal investigation, not just civil. President Trump is going to go after them civilly. He's already beaten ABC. He's already beaten CBS. Steve Colbert got canceled last night, right? So you're winning many things, but a civil suit against the Murdochs is fine. A civil suit against Fox. But we need to raise this up to a criminal level. Do we not, sir?
Look, that's what's so great about starting it this way. You have someone go in there that you can trust, that has the president's back. That guy is Ed Martin. Ed Martin gets results. That's why they were so terrified of him at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah.
And then when he's pursuing all of this and he finds information and said, wait a minute, hold on. You pull this thread a little bit more, it raises to the level of criminal, then boom, now you've got your probable cause, now you've got your suspects, now you've got people that you can go after. Look, follow the evidence where it leads, of course, but obviously we know that there was criminal activity involved with Epstein, and it clearly involved more people than just Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And they keep trying to tie President Trump in, and the more they try to tie him into this network, the dumber the story looks. He's the guy who kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He's the guy who said, how can I help the investigators? None of the other people, by the way, down there in Palm Beach. It was President Trump, back when he was the Mar-a-Lago club owner, when he was in private capacity, said, how can I help with this? So those are the people, by the way, those are the people who don't want this case looked into. They would prefer it be kept quiet. And that's why you got all the Democrats in the mumble tank. When they ask him about this, you got Raskin up there, little Jamie Raskin. Oh, well, we were looking at different things in Jayapal. No, because Jack Smith and Merrick Garland were probably told, don't go down the Epstein rabbit hole.
It also goes right to the intelligence services of both this country and Israel. Let's be blunt about this. That's why all the Israel First guys,
that comes up,
Tel Aviv, Levins, and all those guys say they say nothing to see here. Hey, you got to take this to where it goes, the investigation. Jack, where do people get you through the day? Thank you for changing your schedule to come on. Where do folks get you?
Yeah, of course. We'll be up at Human Events daily today at 2 p.m. We're going to be getting into all the latest with this. Obviously, we're also going to be getting into some of the stuff that's going on overseas, this strike in Israel on a Christian church. We've got to figure out what exactly went on there. We know the president called Bibi Netanyahu, got him to put out this statement yesterday. But Cardinal Pizzaballa, who's someone that we've talked about for several months here on Human Events, we went over to Rome with coverage of that and coverage of the conclave. He's been very, very emphatic on this strike, on this Catholic church right there in Gaza, trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. 3 people were killed in this thing. President Trump very, very upset. The Catholic Church very upset. Pope Leo as well coming out on it.
By the way, who's upset too is Huckabee, the ambassador. I think he sent a letter about, hey, we don't feel you're slow-walking. You're slow-walking visas for the evangelical Christians to go over there.
Christian visas, visas for Christian groups. Times of Israel has it out, and Huckabee wrote a letter to the entire Israeli government saying, we're going to declare you hostile to Christians if you don't fix this.
This is not Fuentes. This is the Times of Israel reporting Huckabee's furious about the evangelical groups, who are some of the biggest supporters of Israel, not getting visas to go over and do their annual trips to show support. So, Jack, we'll see you at 2 o'clock on Human Events Daily. Thank you, sir.
We'll be there.
Natalie, I got a punch. You're going to take, we got Eduardo Bolsonaro. You're going to jump on that, a major development down there in Brazil. Natalie, before I let you go, though, staying on offense, you've advocated this from the beginning. You've been one of the stalwarts. Tell me, where do you think we would go from here? What the next couple of days would you like to see out of the administration as far as staying on offense against the Murdochs, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, also the intelligence apparatus, everything that's come to destroy President Trump, ma'am?
I think I want the names of people who are stonewalling this information, whether they're politicals or careers. If now Team Trump is on board with what I think the War Room has been saying, that we need to get this information out there, then I'm sure there's going to be pushback. Like we said, from careers, as you know, we only control maybe 0.01% of the DOJ, certainly probably less than that. But I think that we need to, fight fire with fire. I'm sorry, Joe Biden destroyed this country. If they were able to orchestrate an invasion of tens of millions of people, tank the economy, force people to get experimental vaccines, I'm not asking you to concoct documents. I'm not asking you to bring fake charges like they did against you or Jan 6ers. I'm just asking for transparency on documents that apparently the DOJ is well aware of, right? The birthday, book that they compiled. I want to read the Wall Street Journal. Quote, pages from the leather-bound album assembled before Epstein was first arrested in 2006 are among the documents examined by Justice Department officials who investigated the 2 of them years ago. It's unclear if any of the pages are part of the recent review. This is the kind of stuff that we should be making public, right? I'm sorry, I thought the DOJ had nothing related to Epstein. Well, this story sort of contradicts that. So why don't we release it? It's maddening, honestly, Steve. I'm not going to be gaslit by people who spent years, basically rested their careers on the idea that there is a deep state. Now, not just tell us that, you should just move on, but that there's nothing to release. I'm sorry, I was told by the AG just about a month ago that she had a whole stack of papers on her desk. So I think we need to figure out who is responsible for this bungled messaging, because to me it reeks of someone covering up for someone. But I think there's blame on both sides, and anyone who's not willing to call that out, you're a cultist, you're not an ideologically driven MAGA War Room posse member. And like you said, it goes to the intelligence angle, it goes to Israel and all of the Israel First crowd that doesn't want to admit that. You're just making our point when you suddenly take the legacy media's, hook, line, and sinker. Oh, there's nothing to see here. We need to move on. You're anti-Semitic if you want to ask about what Epstein was doing on behalf of foreign countries. Probably wasn't just Israel, but there's a lot of gaslighting going on here. And where there is smoke, there's fire. Where there's the deep state and fusion GPS, there's fire too. So let's just release it all and put it to rest.
Natalie G. Winters, you have the deck in the con. Eduardo Bolsonaro is up for you. Horrible news out of Brazil today. Alternative view. I will be back for the 5 and 6 o'clock show. I've got some things I got working on right now. Natalie G. Winters, the deck in the con is yours. See you tonight at 5 o'clock, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And speaking of the deep state and how we mobilize against it, how they mobilize against us, we obviously know this fight is international, and I don't think any country or man, that is, of course, Eduardo Bolsonaro of Brazil, has been more so on the front lines of that fight. Honored to be joined by his son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, with the breaking news that the Brazilian police, I think at the request of the rogue Supreme Court, raided your father's home, political headquarters, ordered him to wear an ankle tag, also barring him from speaking to foreign officials, talking to embassies, and posting on social media, of course, amidst the ongoing tariff dispute between our two countries. We've got a few minutes. Can you just sort of give the audience an update, the latest with what is going on with your father?
Yes, everything that you are talking coming right after President Trump sent a letter for my father, for President Jair Bolsonaro. So what Alexandre de Moraes is doing is what we can expect from him, that he's doubling down again. He always does that. And only to make sure that everybody here is on the same page, my father, he accomplished all of Alexandre de Moraes' orders, even if he was thinking that they were illegal orders. So there is no reason to travel ban Jair Bolsonaro, seize his passport, or now what he's doing is basically an humiliation, and he's challenging President Trump in front of everybody. The good aspect of that is because he's showing that he is the dictator, which I'm always saying that Lula is a problem. Lula is a criminal, is a gangster, but Alexandre de Moraes is jumping in front of everybody and getting all the scene, all the attention to him doing that. Why Jair Bolsonaro cannot use his social media? Just because yesterday he did a video thanking President Trump about the letter that Trump sent to him, why he has to now use a ankle tag? Why all of that? Because this is the persecution that we are facing in Brazil. And I'm always telling my friends from the other countries in Latin America, from Europe, from US, this is what they want to your country. Brazil is just establishing a new model of censorship in social media. 2 weeks ago, our Supreme Court, they decided a new way to do censorship, and they're going to export that to the rest of the world. So it's very, very urgent that the United States, the country of the freedom, the home of the brave, to send an answer for this regime, to do not let the Brazilian censorship model or the Brazilian lawfare model to be exported to other countries. Because I know that if Moraes win this war, this battle, I don't think he will, but if he wins, it's going to be a mess, not only in Brazil, but for sure in other countries around in the West.
And Eduardo, I'm just curious, do you think the reason that they're doing this is because your father, his movement, the sort of global populist movement, is so much on the ascent that the only option they have is to try to silence him?
Sure, yes. My father is leading all the polls, and if the election was today, he likely would beat Lula da Silva, the current president, even in the first round. And for sure, he's only suffering this persecution because of this. Even the Supreme Court, Alexandre de Moraes let clear for everybody that he wants to condemn Jair Bolsonaro to up 43 years in jail still this year, because next year is the election of Brazil, is the year of the election, and he already talked with some press saying that they would never let the mistake that the United States committed, letting Trump run for president, they will not allow this thing happen in Brazil. So they are speeding up as fast as possible.
We've got to jump to break. Bolsonaro. If you can just hang with us for a few more minutes. I'm sure the audience wants to know how they can help, what they can post. War and Posse will be right back after this short break. Mike Benz, we got a packed show coming up.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. We still got Eduardo Bolsonaro joining us. Eduardo, I'm sure you've got to bounce, but just leave our audience with sort of a final message, a warning from you, your family, and your father, what the MAGA movement, which certainly has received a lot of the same arrows you guys have, should take from this, and more importantly, how they can help. If we can post on social media and try to circumvent Judge Moraes.
Yes, only following what is happening in Brazil is good for you to prevent future problems and future kind of lawfare and censorship that you can face in the United States. But we are really alerting everybody, because the only hope that we have is coming from President Trump and his team, including Secretary Rubio and some others, to fight back against that this lawfare in Brazil. They want to sweep the opposition from the next year's election. It does not include only Jair Bolsonaro, who is leading the polls nowadays. So we really needed to answer to the response, and the time for that is right now, because in the future, diplomatic actions like sanctions will not work. In the future, that will be the consolidation of this current regime of Brazil that's really following the Venezuela steps. So do not let something that happen. And also it will be a problem for the United States, because if 25% of the Brazilians leave the country, just like what happened with Venezuela, we are talking about 50 million people leaving Brazil. And we really do not want that. So I appreciate all your support. If you can follow me, I'm tweeting in English a lot right now, mainly on X. So Bolsonaro SP is my account. And God bless Brazil. God bless America.
Thank you so much for joining us. Our prayers are with your father. We look forward to having you on soon.
Thank you.
Of course. That's why we need you guys in the fight. That's why you got to be checking out Tax Network USA. We love the team over there. That's tnusa.com/Bannon, or you can call 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Speak to the team. I think one of the other, shall we say, overlapping or convergent issues that we share with Brazil is, of course, the complete and utter domination, if not infiltration, by the Chinese Communist Party. To that point, I want to bring on Isaac Stonefish. Really, I think a concerning story talking about how a lot of DoD technological apparatus, their systems, they're sort of operating Microsoft systems at that. No conspiracies, no coincidences there, but are actually being run, if not administered, by people in China. It's a ProPublica investigation, but I wanted to bring you on to sort of walk us through this bombshell story.
Stunning journalism, and basically 5-10 years ago, it was the norm for U.S. companies to subcontract, especially 10 years ago, subcontract sensitive work and sensitive technologies to China. And Microsoft reportedly did that, and they just haven't cleaned it up since then. And so what we are facing now is a situation where Microsoft still has pretty high levels of China exposure and appears to be sharing sensitive U.S. personnel secrets with the Chinese Communist Party.
And just walk us through how, I mean, we know it's commonplace that a lot of these companies, but how does this get through in terms of DoD contracting, military work perhaps involving, classified, top secret information, that seems like a non-starter.
It should be, and hopefully it will be moving forward. But the DoD, like many large bureaucracies, often works very slowly. And so it seems in the story that the DoD had no idea of what this was. And the spokesperson was saying, hey, I've never heard of this program. I couldn't find any information on it. What's going on here? And so there's so many nooks and crannies in a bureaucracy of that size. And so they let this happen. And really, I hope this is a wake-up call. And there's been so many wake-up calls, but the U.S. government, U.S. companies need constant wake-up calls about the risks of subcontracting or exposing sensitive technologies to the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, there's a lot of layers to this, too. I think if you sort of invoke the H-1B STEM debate, I think it was just last week that it was reported that Microsoft had applied for sort of a new overwhelming tranche of H-1B visas just before letting go of a lot of American-born engineers. So it's interesting to me that they're outsourcing to, I don't know, only our largest sworn adversary, the Chinese Communist Party, DoD work. But is this something that America has the technological infrastructure to facilitate? I mean, I would think there's no real necessity to need to be outsourcing this to our enemy.
It's a question of cost. And I think Microsoft and so many companies just say, hey, I can do this in China, I can do this in India, it's a lot cheaper. India is far less of a security threat than China is. And what it was is, these companies were in some cases still living in the 2010s, where U.S. policy from Republicans and Democrats, especially early in the decade, was, hey, let's partner with China and let's strengthen the Chinese Communist Party. But the world has changed drastically since then, and companies really need to catch up.
And Isaac, I want to hold you through the break because I want to pivot to this sort of new idea that the reason why we need to give even more IP in the form of, semiconductors or these NVIDIA AI chips to China is how we're going to somehow stay dominant in the tech space, while the same tech bros are also telling us that the only way we can defeat China is by prevailing over them. In the AI space, can you just we've got about a minute, bring our audience up to speed on where we sort of stand with this AI chip debate, the sort of export list, the entity restrictions on exporting these to China?
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was in China this week receiving rockstar treatment from Chinese fans of the Chinese Communist Party, and he has successfully convinced the Trump administration that strengthening Chinese AI companies and the Chinese Communist Party by selling chips to China allows for American companies to be the victor. And so that's the argument, and that's what David Sachs and others said. Frankly, I don't understand it, but that's one side of the debate.
They are such clowns, Isaac. If you can hang with us through the break, we're going to unpack that. Like I've always said, the same people who are saying the only way we can surpass the Chinese Communist Party is by having an edge in technology and AI, while simultaneously lobbying you to want to import even more H-1B visa workers, by which the second country that receives the highest number of them is China, a country that essentially acts like a company, a state-owned industry, where they can basically requisition any individual company to advance the interests of said Chinese Communist Party for any reason whatsoever. Probably not the best approach to national security, and I certainly won't be lectured by people like David Sachs and that clownish, freakish, beta male weird podcast that they put out that is truly awful to watch. Not for censorship, but that one I might maybe take off air. We'll be right back. We're going to dive into that some more after this short break.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. It's Friday, July 18th in the year of our Lord 2025. Natalie Winters hosting, filling in for Steve, who had to leave during the first hour. Don't go anywhere. We, of course, have a packed show. We're going to start it back up again with Isaac Stonefish, sort of an expert in, I would say, corporate sellout. That's maybe too euphemistic a term, to the Chinese Communist Party. I want to pick up sort of where we left off. From my understanding, these chips, sort of in the AI space, really was a significant upper hand that the United States had over China. They obviously dominate us, I think, in some of the more kinetic aspects of warfare, right? The ratios of shipbuilding, though it is civil and military, is like 300 to 1. They dominate the cheap drone market. Obviously, they're expanding and planting flags in weird islands in the South China Sea. They're certainly on the ascent, and this was one of the major concessions thus far that we've given during the trade war. I think the reporting has been that it's sort of a retaliatory thing or just part of the back and forth over particularly the rare earths, which of course China dominates to the tune of 90% at least on the processing side. But I think that this, at least in my opinion, is sort of an unforced error in terms of a concession, because it's such not only a critical space, but it's also something that we had the upper hand in. So I just find David Sachs and that crowd's mentality that the reason why we need to hand over these chips to the Chinese Communist Party is so we can retain an edge. If you just sort of want to pick up where you left off, and maybe even more to the point, what you would advise in terms of probably locking down a lot of these exports even more.
So the question is, where is the U.S.-China relationship going? And if the U.S. and China do go to war, what does that mean for U.S. companies that have worked with the Chinese Communist Party, both from a regulatory and reputational risk perspective, but also from how do we make sure that they're aligned with the U.S. side if something like that happens? And so my worry with what NVIDIA is doing, my worry with what Microsoft has done is, if we are setting the stage for wide-scale decoupling, why are these companies still so exposed to China and the Communist Party? And so what I would advise, both for friends in the U.S. government and also for the companies themselves, is to know what your exposure to China is and work on ways that you can reduce it, and to stop buying the same horse, so to speak. Stop thinking that by strengthening the Chinese Communist Party, by selling them technology, you're in some way helping America leapfrog. That argument didn't work 10 years ago, and it shouldn't work today.
And last question before I let you go, just your sort of bird's eye perspective on the overview of how the trade war, though I don't like that term, is going. These tariffs, are they giving us an advantage against the Chinese Communist Party, or are a lot of these concessions perhaps detrimental?
My biggest frustration with the narrative around tariffs is forgetting all of the various trade barriers that China holds up to foreign companies. So there's this perception now that the U.S. is the country that's gumming up global trade, and that China is the vanguard of free trade. And it's so far from the truth. There's so many barriers to entry of the Chinese market. And so when we have that conversation, we really need to understand the many, many challenges that companies have doing business in China. So on the one hand, you have companies like Microsoft and NVIDIA trying really hard to work in China and making ethical sacrifices to do so. On the other hand, Beijing makes it difficult for them to do so, which in some sort of perverse way encourages them to try to give up more to succeed in the Chinese market.
Isaac, if people want to follow you, stay up to date with everything you're working on, your analysis, where can they go to do that?
So Twitter at Isaac Stonefish and LinkedIn as well, and then also www.strategyrisks.com.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course. Speaking of the Chinese Communist Party and foreign invasion and infiltration in this country, I think there's probably no better person to bring on. Perhaps you've seen him going viral on Twitter this week for giving House Democrats just a brutal beating, metaphorically, of course. That is Mike Howell. Mike, you were just testifying, I want to give the hearing name, an inside job, how NGOs facilitated the Biden border crisis, which I think is a uniquely pivotal hearing because I think a lot of the frustrations with how the deportation and immigration issue has been rolling out under the Trump administration is that it's not going to the root cause. And when I say that, I don't mean the left-wing globalist NGO idea that the root cause is economic inequality and inequity in a bunch of third world countries, but it's that we have a NGO sort of religion, like weird religious aspect of these groups that are essentially, helping these migrants, these illegal aliens make it to the border and then pumping them into every corner of the country. It's from, cradle to grave. It's a whole apparatus. So you testified and provided a lot of actionable information, of course, got a lot of attacks. If you can just sort of walk the audience through how that went and what you see the next steps as.
Yeah, so on the nonprofit side, it's all about the numbers. That's why it's really the only thing to be concerned about or to realize is driving this. The Biden administration couldn't get as many people in and around the country as they wanted to. Their goal was as many as possible, but they only had so many government personnel that they could, employ and deploy to do that. So they just put a bunch of money into big pockets that they then gave to the nonprofits that then recruited these people, greeted them, and shuttled them around the country. That's how you sustain the logistics of a border invasion. And, 10 million plus people came across the border. It was an absolute disaster. But if you fast forward to now, the Trump administration isn't force multiplying in that way. Of course, they just got a huge glut of money through the reconciliation bill, but the numbers of deportations are very low. In fact, they're not even public. There's a reason why they're not public, and it's because they're very low. And so ultimately, it's all about numbers. It's really simple. People in, people out. And they got a lot more people in using NGOs, and we're just not getting that many people out. But I made some points in that hearing, particularly about how Democrats are calling for violence, and violence is happening. I was pleading with them to stand down on their threats for violence. They tried kicking me out of the hearing room. It turned into a big zoo. It actually stretched for 7 hours because they wanted to interrupt me from talking. So they staged a bunch of procedural votes. It was emotional for them. They lost their cool, but it was a lot of fun for me.
And just walk us through, I think this audience is really concerned about action and what these sort of next steps are. As you alluded to, the deportation numbers aren't being posted. This audience is not dumb. We're not going to be hoodwinked just because we can't see it. We know we're not hitting the bare minimum of 7,000 a day, and it's not, anti-Trump or anti-MAGA to criticize. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying facts. But where do you think now, like you said, they have the influx of cash, was it the money that was the limiting factor, or was it just the political wherewithal and I think intensity and frankly just ability to carry out these deportations from just firing on all cylinders and being serious in our conduct and not just putting out tweets and doing photo ops?
Yeah, that's exactly right. What we're seeing now is mass communications, not mass deportations. It's unfortunate. Yeah. The standard, let's remind ourselves that the president said on the campaign trail and, through his presidency is the biggest deportation operation ever, which is a comparison to Eisenhower's Operation Wetback, where there were estimates 1 to 3 million of illegals in the country, and they pointed to 1.1 million being kicked out. So if you look at how many illegals are in this country, you pick your fake number that's out there. I'll go with 20 million. That's a lot of deportation. I think right now we're on track for less than 500,000 this year, which is why they're pointing to that 7,000 number you mentioned is arrests. That's not deportation. The number we care about are people who are picked up, from the interior of the country and returned home. There's going to be all sorts of funny numbers. We saw one, they're trying to point to economic data about labor force participation rate to then extrapolate some self-deportation number. That's all just junk science. The real number is actually the easiest one to obtain. It's the hard deportation number, the removal number, because there's a record for that. You put someone on a plane or a bus and you send them back to where they came from. And so that data exists. It's not public because the number is low. The biggest impediment right now is one of policy and politics. It's that the leadership in this administration has kind of vacillated on the scope of the mass deportation mission. Tom Homan's been strong the whole time, but you have political leadership and Secretary Noem at DHS who have really leaned into the criminal illegal alien aspect. The problem is, while that's like a communications-friendly message, I suppose, it's a safe space to say we're only deporting the worst of the worst. There's only about 500,000 criminal illegal aliens, by their definition, in the United States. That gets you nowhere near mass deportation. Also, it is a lot harder to conduct operations on criminals than it is to do large-scale worksite enforcement. It's obvious to say, but if you're going after an MS-13 gangbanger in the hood, you're bringing in a bunch of officers, you're doing tactical planning, it's a dangerous situation, and so you get less. It prioritizes the quality of, I guess, the communications aspect of it, but it deprioritizes the numbers. And like I said, it's all about the numbers. If you look at how Eisenhower did it, they encircled large agricultural areas, and they, in their own words, in their own reports, and I'll have something on this soon, went in and mopped it up. They grabbed people. They brought in military expertise to help them do it. And so they need, in this Trump administration, to get over these political and policy hurdles. You keep having these trial balloons of amnesty, and then we're changing amnesty like we're a liberal trying to transgender all the kids or something. They can't decide what the word means. It needs to be ultimately clear that if you're illegal, no matter what, you are going home, and it is more likely than not that you will be deported. And the resources that come with reconciliation need to be used extraordinarily quickly. And very creatively, we've proposed a lot of creative ideas for them, but it's time to start cracking down. This is a mandate item. I think it'll determine the midterms and whether the MAGA base shows up. In addition to what I've said on the transparency and accountability issues. If you can't get the numbers up on mass deportations or the results out on accountability, I'm afraid people are going to stay home, because that's what excited people the most.
Yeah, I mean, what they did on the border, the actual securing of it, I think is historic, but we're obviously very analytical here in the war room, and the addition of a lot of these adjectives in front of mass deportations, it's just watering it down. It's whitewashing it. I voted for mass deportations, and I think that you're right to sort of frame it through the lens of what sounds good from a comms shop. I'm sorry, the comms angle that I care about is not what a bunch of, neocon or NGOs supporting, volunteer on the southern border to help invade this country, what those people think. And I think in the same way, there's actually a beauty to the messaging that you're not just getting criminals out, because like I was saying before, my aversion to mass immigration to the tune of tens of millions of people, frankly, legal and illegal, is not merely because you're importing backwards cultures that probably have a statistically higher likelihood of criminality and poverty and stealing your jobs and suppressing your wages. It's a cultural thing. It's the idea that the very fabric of this country, the rug of this country, is being pulled out from underneath us by a set of policies that were instituted by people that we never voted for. And that's why I think there's such an anger, because you're essentially saying that my concerns about wanting to preserve American culture and American heritage, well, I guess you can only do it if the guy's an MS-13 gangbanger. That's a really high threshold. And frankly, I think the other mission point I'm going to hold you through. Exactly. I want to hold you through the break because I want to get into the sort of the Autopen angle of all this too. But I also think it's important to note that you're going to have this crisis just manifest again unless you go after the people who orchestrated it. And I think you have done a wonderful job going after the NGOs, but you have all of the people too. I know the name Mayorkas. I know the weird Biden advisor that's busy writing op-eds for the Washington Post about how they would secure the border. Thanks for your advice. Go shove it. And I don't even know what weird deep dark corner you were working in the Biden regime. But these people need to be held accountable too. It's the same with COVID. Remember the Atlantic was pushing pandemic amnesty? No, I want mass deportations and criminal charges for the people who started this invasion. Not amnesty. in any sense of the word. And shame on you, Maria Salazar, and all the, dozen or so Republicans that joined co-sponsoring that legislation. Screw you guys. I have a country, it's called the United States of America, and I'd like to preserve what it means to be an American, and I don't want to be neighbors with an MS-13 gang member. We'll be right back.
What's up, America?
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room, where, of course, you got to be checking out birchgold.com/Bannon, texting Bannon to 989898. You can get the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There seems like every day a new announcement coming from President Trump, whether it's out of the trade corners of stuff. Of course, Peter Navarro leading it there. I think, frankly, everything is economic when you look at the economic warfare that the Chinese Communist Party is waging against us. So that's why you got to be checking out birchgold.com/Bannon. And while you're at it, how about you check out Patriot Mobile too? That's patriotmobile.com/Bannon. Glenn Story and the team are true patriots. And why do you want to keep giving your money to corporations that probably don't just hate you, but detest you? And I can tell you, certainly do not support mass deportations. Mike Howell, we still got you. I'm curious, I want to link this to another issue that you guys have been certainly ahead of the curve on, and that is all things Autopen. Seems like there's some renewed interest in that. Can you sort of give us an update where we stand on that front, your investigations, your work, what you guys have been doing?
So, this all started in March when we released our first findings about the prolific use of an Autopen device to cover up for Biden's incapacity. And since then, it has taken on many different layers. It has gone to the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. I guess the most recent updates are two very important ones. Comer over in the House began a series of interviews with Biden officials. The first one, the woman who is in charge of the paper for the entire White House, Neera Tanden, the staff secretary, that's the person you see Will Scharf in the Trump administration handing Trump everything to sign. It's usually a very credentialed attorney or somebody who can make sure processes are followed, the paperwork is tight, there's no litigation risk. They're always with the president. Well, guess what Neera Tanden said? She only saw Biden like once a month at best. And she never even had his assent or proof of life before, going down the chain and executing the Autopen device. So that was a massive red flag. And since someone kind of broke with the Biden administration, guess what? All the witnesses since then have claimed the fifth, they're refusing to testify. Where that's at now, and the posse could be greatly helpful on this, is Congress. Some of them are going to say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Guess what? There is something they can do about it. They can grant these witnesses immunity, basically say you're immunized for crimes related to this. Get your butt back in here, testify, answer the questions, and if you don't, you're held in contempt. So don't let Congress keep their foot off the gas. The second thing, and this was Sunday night, the New York Times came out. Keep in mind, the New York Times, 2 weeks after I released our findings in March, said it was a conspiracy theory. Well, they issued another report on Sunday confirming our entire, theory of our case, and said that Biden actually was setting broad categories for pardons, and then his staff would go in and pick and choose who got him. So it's absolutely confirmed Biden was not functionally aware of who was actually getting the pardons, which means they're obviously illegal. President Trump's already said so much, so it's time to fix those, charge those people, put the death row inmates back in on death row, all of the above. One other positive sign is the Trump administration announced an investigation into it. It's kind of duplicative, to be honest, because about a month ago, Trump issued an executive order saying, DOJ, go ahead and do this. Well, the news now is the White House counsel is undertaking a review. It's important for a really detailed reason that has escaped attention. There are two ways they could have gone about this. They could have just focused on Biden's incapacitated. He couldn't have done any of this. Or they could have focused on that and whether Biden actually authorized it, like looking at each individual action and tracing it back to Biden approval. That's a big process. It's a huge process. And so the Trump administration, that's the lane they're going down. We had wanted them to do that. A lot of lawyers were pushing back on us, but they announced a review of 1 million plus pages. And so that's an authorization investigation, which means they got a lot of work ahead. We're going to help them as much as we can. But I remind all the viewers here, like the Oversight Project took this 95 yards down the football field. We've proved every element of this case over and over again in flamboyant fashion, despite the fact that, the New York Times won't give us credit or, anybody else. That's fine. But you need people with government power to actually, charge people, to issue subpoenas. And so that's the zone we're in. We don't need more just information for the sake of it. We need consequences. And that's what we're calling on the government to do.
Yeah, I mean, here's my issue. It seems like the rhetoric that they're putting out, for the most part, is in line with War Room, is in line with the MAGA base, but the actions that they're actually doing to sort of match that rhetoric is sort of still stuck in, performative, frankly, like neocon rhino territory, where it's Trey Gowdy's definition of accountability as evidenced through his botched Benghazi hearing, or, James Comer's, book report that he released instead of putting Hunter Biden in prison, or Jim Jordan's weaponization committee, which still waiting to see exactly what that did. But I think there's also an interesting synergy between the Autopen investigation and, frankly, the Epstein files, right? I'm not obsessed with the Autopen because I'm so maniacally or myopically focused on Joe Biden or what is left of him. It's because it's the question of who runs our country. And when you look at the evil things that these people have done, or frankly, their inability, their aversion to putting America first, right? The fact that that is a dirty word in Washington, D.C., I think is something that is very easily glanced over. But maybe you can't put America first. Maybe you want to invade this country because, I don't know, you're being blackmailed, or you're essentially working on behalf of a foreign government, frankly, even a domestic intelligence service. And the fact that this Wall Street Journal piece, which, yes, it's bogus, but it does prove that even something as marginal as writing a stupid birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein, 2 decades ago, if that's such blackmail or leverage potential there that, you're going to sue Rupert Murdoch in News Corp, well, it proves that connection connections and ties to Epstein were blackmailable. Ergo, he did have influence over people who ended up in government, and it's probably a lot broader than that. So I think that there's really an interesting synergy there. Speaking of other synergies, of course, the legacy media is going to run cover for this cohort, this, can I use the word cabal? If so, I'll use it, of people who run this country. But the legacy media, NPR, your tax dollars are going to subsidize a lot of the information warfare front of it. I know you guys have also been sort of the tip of the spear fighting against NPR and on the receiving end of a lot of their attacks. I know, to bring it back to immigration, the exposés that you did during the campaign trail about all those illegals voting. I think you worked with Anthony from Muckraker on it. Muckraker, I think I had you guys on the show talking about it. You know, they dispatched a bunch of journalists to come after you guys. Just your sort of thoughts on where we stand on the NPR front and why that's a victory.
Yeah, NPR should have been defunded a long, long time ago. It's an absolute joke. And Anthony and his team at Muckraker did some awesome work that we're happy to partner with them on. And this story here is probably one of the hardest I've laughed in recent years. But NPR wanted to do a hit piece on us, which is just funny because you're thinking the whole time, they're paying for a hit piece. You know, I'm paying for my own hit piece. And so, okay, whatever. We were like, let's have some fun with this. We took the interview with them full well knowing that they were just going to be outrageous. But the interview was about an expose into voter fraud and illegal aliens being registered to vote and admitting to being registered to vote on camera. And NPR wanted to run cover for those illegals who admitted on camera multiple times to being registered to vote. And so of all people in the world, they sent this woman named Julia Hofblock or something to that effect. And we were sitting down and, you know, we're talking to her, and of course we're recording the thing. And it turns out she had worked for Acorn, the infamous voter fraud organization. And so NPR literally sent somebody involved in the voter fraud organization to interview us about a story about real voter fraud issues. And we blasted them. They kind of went away for a bit. But that little nugget tells you exactly what NPR is. It's a bunch of just liberals with really soothing music on in the background. You know, just with high class microphones saying outrageous things. So I'm glad they're getting shut down a little bit.
Mike, if people want to follow you, stay up to date with everything you're working on, I think you represent what real accountability means, not stupid letters or press conferences meant to distract and gaslight. Where can people go to do that?
So Oversight Project can be found at It's Your Gov on X, and that's because it's your government. People forget that. I'm at mhowell_tweets, and our website right there is itsyourgov.org. If you're up there, hit that resource button. We got something called a Dot Depot where we're really trying to up the game in terms of dumping government files in there. I think you can have a lot of fun with the search functionality. It's going to get bigger and badder. No one has more docs than us, and we're linking them together in ways that citizen journalists can really get a leg up on the censors.
Citizen journalism, I think, has always been the way out, or at least a considerable part of the way out of this mess. Mike Howell, thank you so much for joining us. We will have you back on soon.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Of course, in War and Posse, it's why we need you in the fight. So it's why you got to be checking out HomeTitleLock.com using promo code Steve. Don't let these weird cyber criminals, or maybe, I don't know, it's a Chinese working for the DOD by proxy through Microsoft who's going to try to steal your home. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code Steve, also Tax Network USA. That's TNUSA.com/Bannon, or you can call 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Like I said, we certainly need you guys in the fight. We're going to, I think, have Mike Benz join us after the break. But until then, I'm sure you guys recall there was that bombshell notice, NOTUS story, talking about how these former state and USAID employees were essentially verbalizing, leaking their plans to sabotage the Trump administration from within. Now, I think there was a phrase for this that President Trump was attacked for using, and that's called the enemy within. But the gist of their case, their operations, are going to be to use the tactics that they have used in third world countries to foment, coups and cultural revolutions, too, Freudian slip there. But here, domestically, on U.S. soil. And the word that they were using was non-cooperation. So I want you guys, the posse, to really chew on that for a second. But non-cooperation is the new strategy. And to that point, indivisible. You may remember the group organizing all the really violent anti-Tesla protests. They take a bunch of Soros money. They were caught paying protesters. Well, they just put out a call to train 1 million of their supporters, activists, paid protesters, take your pick, in the tactics of non-cooperation to essentially kneecap the Trump administration. So an interesting synergy there. You know, we pay attention, we engage in pattern recognition, we focus on word use, but non-cooperation, that's going to be the radical left's new approach to coming after President Trump. We got Mike Ben's packed show after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room, where, of course, you got to be checking out birchgold.com/Bannon, texting Bannon to 989898, getting the guide to gold under Trump. It is the golden era, the golden age. There's a lot of, shall we say, turbulence when it comes to Fed Chair Jerome Powell. We were supposed to have Wade Miller on. I think we'll have him on maybe tonight or tomorrow, talking about how there is legitimate grounds for President Trump to be able to remove him. I won't get ahead of him. I'll let him tease that out. But before we go, we're working on tracking down Mike Benz. We got some other guests, but I just want to really double down on what I was talking about before the break. because this is something we pride ourselves on being ahead of the curve and having signal, not noise. And this is one of these issues. I embed myself behind enemy lines. I go to all their virtual trainings and their meetings and that kind of stuff. And I do it so I can bring you information so we can understand the enemy. I think as we've seen the quotes from the past few weeks, Democrats are getting increasingly hostile, belligerent, bellicose, violent, take your pick of what adjective you want to use. They're probably all too euphemistic. In their own words, they want blood. But this new initiative that they're rolling out, like I said, by Indivisible, so that's the Soros-funded, shady, swampy, kind of left-wing organization that really provides the shock troops for a lot of these mainstream Democratic issues. It's called 1 Million Rising. I don't know about you. There's something kind of Maoist about that term. But they're calling it strategic non-cooperation to fight authoritarianism. It's, quote, and we have the pictures if you want to put it up on screen, a national effort to train 1 million people in the strategic logic and practice of non-cooperation, as well as the basics of community organizing and campaign design. Quote, let's build a force bigger than fear. And why this is so, I think, important is because it goes back to that story about these ex-USAID, ex-State Department employees who are holding these secret kind of off-the-books workshops. They're calling it Democracy Aid. That's the official name of the group, where they're plotting these tactics of non-cooperation with one of the spoken goals that they've discussed being sort of a nationwide strike. I'm not exactly sure if that's, public sector, private sector, what exactly that would look like. But the quote from that reporting in terms of what they were planning was, quote, they're building a network of government workers willing to engage in even minor acts of rebellion in the office. And they're planting the seeds of what they hope could become a nationwide general strike. And one of the things that they were doing to help incentivize these employees to sabotage President Trump, whether that's, blowing the whistle, leaking documents, talking to the press, which frankly, I think with what you see going on to the Wall Street Journal, I think there's an interesting synergy there. But they were actually circulating, again, legacy media's words, not mine, no conspiracies, no coincidences, but they were circulating old CIA materials. One of the pamphlets was titled Simple Sabotage, and it was a bunch of the tactics that they would use to sort of develop, whether it was human sources, or, turn people, develop sources to, I guess, allegedly boost the interests of the United States. But in this case, to sabotage President Trump. And this is an extremely well-funded organization. They're holding weekly virtual calls. They're getting ready to expand and go, frankly, kinetic by hosting in-person protests, right? This is the same group, No Kings, that put on those whole protests that are involved in this. So this is the tip of the spear when it comes to left-wing activism. And like I said, non-cooperation. Start paying attention. You're going to see that word a lot more throughout. And I think we've got Mike Benz up. But before we get to him real quick, I just want to hit Trevor Comstock, our Maha Sherpa, all things beef liver. Trevor, if you want to hit the audience with the latest that you've been working on, you've got, I think it's virtual, but you have a nice background. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Actually, to your point, we have some exciting stuff rolling out over the next few days, which I'll come on early next week to mention. But for today, I really just wanted to highlight our second most popular product, which is our multi-collagen supplement. And I know most people don't really realize this, but collagen is the most abundant protein in our body, and it's what keeps your skin firm, your joints flexible, as well as your hair and nails strong. But after the age of 25, natural collagen production begins to slow down. So over time, this can lead to common signs of aging like wrinkles, weaker joints, as well as digestive issues. So collagen also plays a huge role in maintaining overall health. Yet, unfortunately, modern diets don't really provide enough of it. So that's why supplementing with a high-quality collagen source can be extremely beneficial. So if you are looking to support healthy aging, improve skin hydration, or just maintain stronger joints, collagen is a pretty simple yet effective way you can do that. And like anything, it's not necessarily a quick fix, but with consistent use, many people really do start to notice a difference in the way they look and feel over time. And what's great about our specific collagen is that it's formulated with 5 types of collagen and derived from 4 different sources. So you'll get types 1 through 5 collagen, which is the full spectrum. Whereas many other products out there, you'll just get one or maybe two types of collagen. So we do got you covered there, which is pretty cool. And then, with that, our unique blend will help support everything I had mentioned in regards to healthy skin, hair, nails, joint health, gut function, etc. So yeah, it's a pretty phenomenal product. You can sift through our reviews. We've had a lot of great feedback between the reviews and then just people raving through emails that we get as well. So I've been super excited about that. I take it as well every day. I think it helps with my skin hydration a lot, as well as my gut. So always happy to talk about this product.
Trevor, I love collagen. It's one of my favorite supplements. If people want to get on the collagen train, get the beef liver or whatever else you guys have, one more time, just give us the website and the promo code.
Yeah, of course. So you can go to sacredhumanhealth.com or just type in Sacred Human to Google. We'll pop up. And then you can use code WARROOM for 10% off any one-time order. If you subscribe, you're locked into the 10% discount for life, and you can cancel at any time. Just shoot us an email. But yeah, sacredhumanhealth.com.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course. Mike Benz, I think we got you. You have the world's most bizarre sleeping schedules. You wake up usually after the morning show. I'm always texting you trying to get you on, and you're like, it's 3 p.m. I just woke up. But that's enough for jokes. I know the audience wants to hear your thoughts, so I'm just going to let you take it away. Let's start last night, the Wall Street Journal drop, dump. That's probably too euphemistic. Take it away on the timing of this, the story, and then let's get into the movement on some of the documents you've requested.
Well, it's kind of hysterical what happened last night. The Wall Street Journal published one of the most bizarre screeds that you're going to find reprinted in mainstream journalism. I think one of the lines that stood out, now obviously this was a purported letter from Trump to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday, filled with riddles and cartoon drawings, and evidently this had been sat on. We're to be told that this was in a Justice Department exhibit, just newly unearthed, and critics are obviously trying to use this to say, aha, this is the reason that we don't have the Epstein files, because Trump has this happy birthday letter, and things may not be as they seem, because who knows how many more birthday letters Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, look, the fact is we know that Trump was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, in the 1990s. I just had a birthday party, and the binder was there, and Trump's name is very clearly in the binder in the 1990s. This was we've been here, done that. Trump is obviously arguing about the authenticity of the letter, but even if I guess what I'm getting at is Epstein was not arrested until 2006. In the 1990s, I don't think people widely knew what he was doing. Trump was famous for having kicked Epstein out of his private clubs in Florida. So you couldn't really do business in the 90s in high finance or real estate without bumping into Epstein. So to me, the mere presence of a letter, even if it were true, doesn't really do anything for me. But the fact is there was, on the heels of this, or perhaps concurrent with it, Trump demanding or greenlighting Pam Bondi to unseal grand jury evidence to the extent that the court would allow it in order to satiate the base, which is a good start. My concern is the things that I'm particularly most interested in, i.e., Epstein's intelligence ties, are not going to be in a grand jury, are not going to be something that you're going to find unsealed in a grand jury case. So I think that's good, but it's not really responsive to the main issue in my view. And so Pam Bondi has got to get, she's got to get the Justice Department OPR transcript of Alex Acosta, and she's got to tell us the results of the CIA name trace on Jeffrey Epstein.
And walk us through some of these other documents that you've been calling for, if you've seen any movement or frankly just even any response on those.
Well, Charlie Kirk has been echoing this call as well. I've seen it begin to pick up traction. I've not seen anything or heard from any sources inside the Justice Department about whether or not it's registered yet. But, I've not yet begun to fight. My goal is to basically make it that they can't have a press conference without being asked this question openly. And in addition, this is such an easy ask. I mean, the Justice Department, OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility, reports directly to the Justice Department. This is not like on the CIA side where you need to trawl through, hundreds of or thousands of Byzantine documents or layers of bureaucratic authorization. What we're looking for is the full transcript where Alex Acosta was asked 5 years ago whether or not asked about the extent of Epstein's intelligence ties, and all we have is this one little footnote buried in on page footnote 244 of a 348-page report. It's a one-line summary description of it, which I thought was highly misleading, and for the public to be able to know how those queries around Epstein's intelligence ties were shaped by Bill Barr in his emails as well, and the CIA Office of General Counsel. What I'm getting at here is I've made about a dozen videos at this point about two very easy things that can be done in order to satiate the base here: Acosta's transcript, as well as the internal chatter around that, and the results of the CIA name trace. If we're told that Epstein belonged to intelligence by the Daily Beast, is it true?
Mike, if you can hang with us through the break, I know the audience really respects your viewpoints on this, and I do think there's sort of this concerted effort to reframe the Epstein stuff to make it sort of tabloid-esque, limited hangout, focus on the stupid, weird birthday card instead of what I think the thing itself is, right, which is the domestic, frankly, foreign intelligence leaks. I know you were tweeting last night if anyone had done a CIA name trace on Jeffrey Epstein. Just a lot of rudimentary stuff where, I think we've become so accustomed to being called conspiracy theorists that we sort of just, rolls off our back. But like the stuff that we're asking for is not absurd. Frankly, the stuff that we're asking for was just cited in that Wall Street Journal article. I think the best way to clear it up would be just to, release the freaking book that these alleged cards were in. And frankly, I would like to know who actually wrote him birthday cards and who actually was partying and hanging around him, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. I don't discriminate. We'll be right back. More Mike Benz after this short break.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. We're still joined by Mike Benz. Mike, you've got the last few minutes of the show. Just sort of help the audience understand where you think we go from here, what the next few days look like.
I think where we go from here is going to totally depend on the admin's response. This has been one of the more bizarre episodes in the history of our running love affair with Trump, I think, from the base, in the sense that this is not an issue that really affects our day-to-day life, like the economy or like a foreign war or even something like, the trade war or even something like a government agency like USAID. This is kind of a litmus test issue about responsiveness to the base in terms of cleaning up past episodes of corruption to send a message that such a thing cannot be done again. And in that spirit, I think that Trump has hoped that this would go away because it's not as big an issue in terms of the day-to-day impact on people's lives as other things. And so there's been a constant flip-flopping between saying, yes, we'll give transparency, you're crazy if you want transparency. A special prosecutor sounds good. What do you want a special prosecutor for? It's not necessary. As I posted yesterday, Trump in 2015 saying Bill Clinton is going to have a problem because of a little guy named Jeffrey Epstein in a little island. And then 2025, the Democrats and Bill Clinton made up the Jeffrey Epstein thing that he campaigned on as saying was evidence of corruption. But so I think there's been a hope that the MAGA base would kind of just let it go. And ironically, this was the same hope I think that Democrats had, that MAGA would just kind of let go of issues, and instead found to I think Democrat and mainstream media dismay that like the MAGA base is super hardcore. When it bites its teeth into something, it's like a pit bull. It doesn't really let go of it. And, Trump made this a MAGA thing to talk about. You can't really un-MAGA it. You can't really unring the bell. And I think they're going to continually find this to be the case until we see good faith attempts to get answers. It doesn't have to be a full answer. Tulsi Gabbard didn't give us a full answer on JFK, but we saw it was a good faith effort. Just this week, the Washington Post had to publish on A1 front page the Joannides stories about the CIA, having assets, fully in touch with Lee Harvey Oswald and surveying his home and mail beforehand. I mean, this was all forced because of the good faith effort at Odie and I. And the least that can be done is to give us an answer on Epstein's intelligence ties, at least vis-a-vis what U.S. intelligence knew or information had collected on Epstein, so that researchers can take it from there. But we need an answer on that. I don't think anyone's letting it go. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I don't think our interest in the Epstein stuff was a function of President Trump talking about it, so I don't think his dismissal of it is going to throw people off the case. We're interested in it because it exposes answers to questions that, frankly, I don't even think we know exactly what those questions are, because it gets to the power structures, the people, the foreign countries that run or try to influence this country. And Mike Benz, I say it for myself, for Steve and this audience, we appreciate the work that you've done on this front, giving us actionable calls, so we don't look as crazy as we actually are, or as the legacy media depicts us to be. In the meantime, before we have you back on, we'll do the evening show, don't worry. Where can people go to follow you and stay up to date with everything you're working on?
Find me on X at Mike Benz Cyber.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. And Warren Posse, we're going to go to another Mike, equally a fighter. That is Mike Lindell. Mike, you've got a few minutes. Hit us with the latest all things MyPillow.
Right on. And I want to tell you guys something. You know, you might have heard Stephen Colbert. It's bye-bye. He's leaving late night TV as they bash my pillow and myself for the last 4.5 years. And we're still here. And even in spite of all the attacks, and you guys have made that possible. And what we're doing today, I'm going to extend this $39.98, any size, any color. This has been a War Room exclusive, you guys. This is it. Last day, this will never happen again at the $49.98. We couldn't even get them at this wholesale price anymore. So this was, you guys helped us out. We're running it. This is the last day. Use promo code War Room. That's Split Kings, Cal Kings. You're saving almost $100 a set. If you go to the website, scroll down, click on Steve, and you're going to see you have the My Crosses made in the USA. 50% off, you guys, the women's, the men's. The women's just came in. Now they're back in stock. Reversible, absolutely amazing. You guys use that. We have another sale there, as you see, all of our kitchen towel sets and stuff. And we have a clearance event. If you guys click on that, these are War Room exclusive. But make sure you get on it today for the Giza Dream Sheets using promo code War Room. Call 800-873-1062. All of my War Room. Call 800-873-1062. All of my operators across the country, everybody, we're so happy at My Pillow winning that big lawsuit. And then you see that after all the attacks by these hosts, we're going to do a big show today on my show on LindellTV.com about these late night talk show hosts that continue to attack everyone that's all the conservative patriots in our country. But use 800-873-1062. Promo code War Room, the most sought after promo code in history. And we've said it before, Natalie, it's a win-win-win. And I think there's even an extra win on there now. I mean, it's win-win-win-win.
All the wins you could ever want. Maybe room for a little more on some of the Epstein stuff. Mike Lindell, we'll have you back soon. Always appreciate you coming on. And we are going live, always fun to toss, to a gaggle over at the White House with Tom Homan. Thank you guys for hanging with me.
We're looking to get 100,000 beds, and the more beds we get, the more bad guys we can take off the street. Every criminal alien we arrest on the street, before we deport them, they need a bed because it takes several days, several weeks, several months to actually remove them. So we need more beds. We're bringing beds on quickly as possible. I think Governor DeSantis came up with a good model. And I'm not familiar with the cost yet. That's a question for ICE, but we're looking for beds, and I hope we get more beds on soon. We need the beds.
I'm sorry, I said alligator Alcatraz. I meant Alcatraz, the reopening of Alcatraz, the original off the coast.
Well, I think they're looking at it. I don't think any decision has been made yet. They've looked at the cost of it, but I'm not in the loop on that. But again, we're looking for any available bed space we can get that meet the detention standards that we're accustomed to. Beds are important. Last week, I woke up one morning, we had less than 200 beds. We'll fill them by half a day. So we're constantly having to change flight arrangements and move deportation as quick as we can to empty beds. We shouldn't be in that position. These operations take time. They're well thought out operations. We need to know that there's a number of beds available when we take the bad guys off the street. So we need to bring beds on as quick as possible, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Is there plans to continue major enforcement pushes within sanctuary cities and states?
Well, the president made it clear we're going to focus on sanctuary cities, make them priority. And why is that? Because we know they're a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day because they're sanctuary cities. They're not honorary detainers. We don't have that problem in most of Texas and Florida, for instance. So we can take resources from those areas and put them in areas where we know there's a problem. So I've said for weeks, we're going to flood the zone in sanctuary cities. You're going to see a record number of agents in the neighborhoods and a record number of agents at work site. If they don't give us the criminal alien the safety and security of county jail, then we're going to go in the neighborhood and find them because we're going to do the job. If we can't find them in the neighborhood, we'll find them at the work site. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the community, which is going to equal more collateral arrest, because when we find a bad guy and it's with somebody that's not a criminal but he's here illegally, they're coming too. So that's the president made that commitment, and I made that commitment, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're already doing it.
Mr. Homan, if it did ultimately cost $2 billion to renovate Alcatraz, is that a figure that you're comfortable with?
I'd have to see how many beds come out of that number, and what's the length of stay that facility is going to do. We got short-term bed facilities, we got long-term bed facilities. So unless I have that information, I can't even give you a guess.
Would you rather see other states do things like Alligator Alcatraz instead of this big?
I know the secretaries are working with other states to do that, to bring on beds quickly that meet our detention standards. Look, I think states have a responsibility too. What the Biden administration did for 4 years, releasing all these people into the country not properly vetted, becomes a state problem. Look, all the traffic you saw in the last 4 years coming through Texas, 97% of it didn't stay in Texas and went all over the country. So states have responsibility. States have felt the effect in crime and exhaustion of their social services. So states have a big share of this too. I'm happy that states are stepping up.
Mr. Homan, as far as beds are concerned, what kind of number do you have right now as far as beds are concerned? How many, and what's the timeline to get to 100,000 beds?
Quick as possible. I don't have a timeline. We got a lot of contracts being reviewed, but the faster we get the beds, the more people we can take off the street.
How many beds do you have right now?
Right around 60,000.
Mr. Homan, people who
Go ahead. Pardon me?
What penalties should someone who assaulted an ICE officer face?
That's a felony. You should go to prison. President Trump made that clear the other day. This ridiculousness is over. You put a hand on an ICE officer, you're going to prison. You impede an ICE officer, you're going to be prosecuted.
When are you going to start?
If you know and conceal an illegal alien, you're going to go to jail. If you throw a stone at an ICE vehicle or an officer, those days are over. They're going to get out of the car. They're going to arrest you. President Trump made that clear the other day. I talked to President Trump about that. Within 15 minutes, he put a tweet out. So the ICE officers know. Zero tolerance. Border Patrol knows. Zero tolerance.
Mr. Homan, two questions. One is there are a lot of Australians who, and I've spoken to many in that community. I'm not Australian. I'm a US citizen from New Zealand originally. But they're genuinely scared. Australians drink a lot. A few of them have DUIs. They're here legally. They've paid off their fines. They've done the restitution thing, but they're still scared they're going to be deported because they had a DUI, say, 10 or 15 years ago. Is that true? That's what they're thinking is true. And the second thing is there was someone arrested today who overstayed his visa. Do you think that it's wrong to overstay a visa? I understand that, but do you think if they have committed no criminal offences, they should be penalised the same in these harsh deportations?
If you're here in violation of the law, you're going to be held accountable. Okay. President Trump made it clear we're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats, but you're in the country legally, you got a problem. That is why we're pushing the CB home map. Put your affairs in order and leave the country, make yourself available for some legal program. But if you commit a crime, you violate your status here, that's on you. You violated the law, you're going to be held accountable.
What about these Aussies with DUIs?
As far as enforcement against...
Over 10,000 people die a year from DUI. That's a serious crime.
As far as enforcement against mayors who are harboring illegal aliens, when is this going to happen as far as mayors?
That's a question for Pam Bondi and DOJ. I've said it from day one, no one's above the law. If you knowingly and harbor, conceal an illegal alien from ICE, that is a felony. If you impede ICE officers from doing their job, that is a felony. That's a question for DOJ. I've asked DOJ to look at a few cases, and they're looking at them. So I'll just leave it at that. It's a question for Pam Bondi.
When do you expect the president to actually announce the specifics of the exemptions for deportations for foreign workers?
Look, there's discussions going on. I'm not going to get ahead of President that. But I'll say this, because I've read a lot of news stories that are inaccurate. There will be no amnesty. There are people talking about, we talk about policies every day, strategies every day. That is one of the discussions. Not getting ahead of the president. We'll see what happens.
Are you concerned about the amnesty provisions in Congressman Salazar's bill?
There will be no, the president will not approve any amnesty.
Proposals similar to Alligator Alcatraz. Which states and how many are you getting?
We don't have an agreement yet, so I'm not giving anybody any credit until we got an agreement.
What's happening with golden cards? President announced a few months ago.
Out of my lane. I'm the border czar.
Okay. Can you explain how
border wall construction and which regions are seeing that restart, and also how much border wall and how quickly is this moving? Any updates?
No, I know CBP. I talked to CBP this morning. They have a plan. They got a prioritization where they're putting border barriers up based on where they see the biggest need. Wall is being constructed. More water buoys are being put in the water, but That plan is being put together now based on the big, beautiful bill, knowing they have the money available. They're reinstituting that plan, so I don't have the most recent facts on that.
Specifically, that funding is going to where you're tracking border.
No, no. We have a conversation in a lot of countries, but until we get an agreement, I'm not going to comment who they are.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so that was Border Czar Tom Homan speaking there outside the White House. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get you back to more of the Charlie Kirk Show.
The will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Okay, everybody, radio stations across the country. Honored to be with you as always. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. We are here at the mobilebitcoin.com studio. That is the mobilebitcoin.com studio. The studio's playing some music here.
Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song.
Oh, is that,
try not to sing
I get along with a little help of my friend?
Oh, baby,
Joe Crawford. Happy Friday, everybody. There's some breaking news happening that developed last night. I get along with a little help of my friends. Brian's looking around very confused. It'll all make sense in just a second. Breaking last night, the Wall Street Journal attempted a terrible drive-by, as the great Rush Limbaugh would say it, as I'm wearing my Rush Was Right t-shirt, of our phenomenal president. I mean, as soon as I read the story, I said, this is the dumbest, obviously fakest thing. I don't believe it. Apparently, it was some sort of like a pseudo love letter. The bombshell story was some kind of birthday card album assembled for Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell in 2003. There's no photo of the letter in question or the birthday cards supposedly sent by other people. It only described by the Wall Street Journal, which also cites people familiar with them, so they clearly didn't see the whole thing. The card is some sort of a hand-drawn illustration of a naked woman done in marker, and then Donald Trump's signature over her midsection to apparently imitate pubic hair. It's just like so for Epstein's 50th birthday. The implication is that Trump might have made this illustration himself, which just sounds so bizarre. When has he ever done anything like this? Look, I have several handwritten notes from President Trump. He's not a doodler. He's not a drawer. I mean, this is nothing like him at all. I mean, these are, yeah. So there's a typed up third person conversation between Trump and Epstein where the lines attributed to Trump don't sound like him at all. Like this quote, enigmas never age. Okay, let me just say this. I know the president. You guys know the president. You have watched him for over a decade do MAGA rallies ever since he went down the golden escalator. Does, quote, enigmas never age, quote, may every day be a wonderful secret? Does that sound like President Donald Trump? Trump never Trump says this was all a hoax and says, as far as he's concerned, it sounds like it. Nothing sounds remotely like Trump, like he would write up on his own. And so the Wall Street Journal releases this last night. Now, we quickly came to the president's defense because this thing was obviously a hit job, obviously a drive-by shooting trying to go after President Trump, trying to tie some of the Epstein news to President Trump to try to bring down his approval ratings and try to weaken him. Right after that, though, was literally within an hour, President Donald Trump announced a bombshell development, massive, where President Donald Trump announced that he is authorizing Pam Bondi to move to unseal the grand jury testimony in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. We discussed this a couple times throughout the week. This is a massive development. This is something that needs to be focused on. For any of you that care about the Epstein story, what's likely to be in the transcripts? Well, testimony of Epstein and Maxwell victims and witnesses, in particular their actions, their associations, locations, and timelines. Discussions of physical and documentary evidence is likely to be in there. Maxwell's phone wiretap records, logbooks, private island, and photographic evidence. We don't know for sure if that's going to be in there, but any references to any of that stuff very well might be in the grand jury documents. However, certain experts note that these transcripts may be limited in scope. They will focus on Epstein and Maxwell, not on the broader allegations among other high-profile individuals. But still, this is a phenomenal development, and thank you, President Trump, and thank you to this Trump administration. So the team decided to play, I get along with the help of my friends, as a little bit, kind of as a lighthearted joke and a little bit of a wink and a nod. You see, I went viral this week because I said, look, a lot of people that I know in the administration, my friends in the White House staff and throughout the government, they were working on this, that your voices were heard over the weekend at the Student Action Summit. And people were mocking me. They say, oh, Charlie, do you trust the government? I said, look, okay, I'm not saying I trust the government. I say my friends are working on this. Well, it turns out it looks like they were, and they deserve great credit for it, for all the White House staff, for everyone that was involved in this, and especially, of course, the president. This is a massive move, and one that is met with celebration, and one that is met with gratitude, and one that honestly shows that President Trump is moving in a transparent way that Joe Biden never moved. Joe Biden very well could have moved to unseal the grand jury documents. Many of these things have been in the works. And I didn't know how long any of this was going to take, obviously. And look, this show is full of, at times, little Easter eggs and tidbits. And instead of assuming the worst, perhaps I want everyone to see things more clearly. And again, has President Trump not earned our trust at this time? That's what I was trying to say back on Monday, and maybe I said it a little imprecisely after a sleepless weekend and a high adrenaline event. What I was trying to get at is after the tariffs, after the Iran situation, after all the successes, President Donald Trump is worthy of our confidence. We should have a full confidence vote in President Donald Trump. And throughout the entire week, I know that there was a lot of question of, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? And now here we are on Friday. Number one, he gets attacked just relentlessly by the Wall Street Journal in such an uncalled for way. And we have his back 100% against this smearing and the slandering. And then number two, President Donald Trump has authorized Pam Bondi in a historic way to show a commitment to transparency and what he has said this entire week. And he has always had an ace in the hole to play. Boom. Last night, President Donald Trump drops this massive news, and President Donald Trump has been alluding to that all week. I want the credible information out. If it's credible, we should get it out. And the grand jury documentation largely is credible and should be received as such. And also, let's just be honest, everybody. We do not want what has happened this last week to slow down the momentum of this great administration. We're not going to let that happen on this program. That is why we're going to cover this in just one segment. We have Mike Rowe later this hour, and then I'm going to talk about amnesty the next segment. This is very important, and the president deserves thanks. So for any of you in the audience that were a little uneasy, that were a little anxious, I think it's morally incumbent on you to say, thank you, President Trump. Thank you for stepping up and for doing this. Thank you, President Trump, for fulfilling what you said you were going to do, because he does deserve credit. And the entire White House administration deserves credit because they've been dealing with 900 different things. And I know that patience in the time of social media is a virtue that is lost. It's very difficult for a lot of us. I'm one of the most impatient people imaginable. My entire team will tell you, it's like, where's it going? What's happening in real time? Mike, you will attest to this. I'm one of the most impatient people ever created on God's green earth. But President Donald Trump, we should take a step back. He's doing a phenomenal job. The border's secure. The economy's doing much better. He's ending wars all over the world. That he has earned, one of my favorite words in the English language, he has earned our confidence. He has earned it. And I think we should say, at this particular time, this is a massive move. It is a major move that is deserving of gratitude and of thanks, with all the other stuff that he's working on. But also, it was very fun to see. Nothing unites MAGA like fake news. And it was also so interesting because the DOJ news became second. It was very telling to see who actually came to the president's defense when this Wall Street Journal piece was dropped. It was very telling. A lot of people were coming to the president's defense after the Pam Bondi news, but it was very telling that a lot of people did not defend the president there. I mean, this is so ridiculous. Someone said, this is like the picture of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump did this. It's such a joke that, he's like some sort of doodler, and now he's Robert Frost or something as a poet. It doesn't read like him. It doesn't sound like him. I don't believe it. I will say, though, the Wall Street Journal story does not pass the smell test. Why didn't Democrats use this story years ago? It's a good question. Nothing unites MAGA quite like fake news. Last night was a big night. We say thank you, President Trump, and now it's in the hands of the courts. It's in the hands of the Department of Justice, and we'll see what happens. Next segment, we're going to cover some amnesty. Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/Charlie. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Make the switch today. 100% American patriotic cell phone service. So check it out right now at patriotmobile.com/Charlie. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. If you guys want to make the switch today, you guys need to stop funding woke wireless. Go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Patriot Mobile is a great way that you guys can have a cell phone service in alignment with your values. Call 972-PATRIOT. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. There is a lawmaker from Florida, a Republican, pushing for amnesty. We warned you this was coming. We explain in a second.
From the campus to the car, the bullhorn to the microphone, it's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. I'm going to tell you guys about one of our great YRefi partners. That is YRefi.com. So check it out right now at YRefi.com. That is YRefi.com. So take a look at it. YRefi.com is amazing for all the private student loan borrowers out there. You guys can check it out at YRefi.com. If you guys have over $300 billion of student loan debt, make sure you guys take a look at YRefi.com. It's $300 billion of privately held student loan debt. So get out of the private student loan malaise. And if you have a friend, a brother, an aunt, a niece, and anyone in your family member, the family that has private student loan issues, have them check out right now, YRefi.com. That is YRefi.com, YREFY.com. So you guys can get out of privately held student loan debt today. That is YRefi.com. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and get the Rush Was Right t-shirt. The Rush Was Right t-shirt at charliekirk.com. That is charliekirk.com. We are wearing it on this Friday to remember the great Rush Limbaugh. Email me, freedom@charliekirk.com. Be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. And so, look, we are going to keep our eyes closely on the move to unseal the documents and all Epstein news as it develops, and we are not done with it by any means necessary. But Andrew had all the fun yesterday. I want to get in on the action. You know, I took a day to kind of enjoy the beauty in the undisclosed location, so I want to get on the fun here. There will be time next week. We're going to cover all the Epstein stuff, but I got to get in on Amnesty. That's fun. I want to get in on that. Andrew had a whole show on Amnesty, and people are texting me. They said, Charlie, Andrew's crushing it. I said, oh, hold on. Andrew did great, but I want to get – he gets all the Amnesty fun. The one day I take off, he gets a whole hour on Amnesty. I said, I want to jump into that because let's be honest, everybody. No Amnesty is a core promise. Andrew did he did a half an hour on Amnesty. And so I saw this clip, and I know her. I know Maria Elvira Salazar. We actually campaigned for her once. She's in a very Cuban district, which is unusual. Why she's so pro-amnesty, being from a Cuban Venezuelan district, because there's not a lot of illegals in the Cuban demographic. Many of them have come here legally, or they came under legitimate asylum or refugee status. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. It'd make a lot more sense if she was a representative from a border town in Texas. But remember, we warned about this a couple weeks ago. I heard whispers of this. Yesterday, a U.S. senator who I really respect texted me, Charlie, real chats for amnesty on the Hill. In fact, let me read you the text from this U.S. senator. Let me see here, Senator. Here it is. He said, we got to kill this amnesty push right now. I'm so grateful for your post on this. We really need to go hard on this. I said, is there really a big amnesty push question? He said, there is, yes, unless we kill this quickly. So it's happening. On Congress, the president doesn't want amnesty. But Congress is going to try to frame this in a manipulative and deceitful way. Again, President Donald Trump, he has been resolute and stalwart in this. So let's play this. This is Maria Elvira Salazar, Chief Amnesty Czar of the U.S. Congress, the Dignity Act. What is the one that I want to play, though? Oh, yeah, play cut 402. This is Miss Amnesty. Oh, no, it's not amnesty, but it's amnesty. If you ever say it's not amnesty, but it's 100% amnesty. This is low-calorie amnesty. I'm sorry, it's still amnesty. Play cut 402.
They did break the law. They are illegals or undocumented, but they have been here for more than 5 years, contributing to the economy. Those people, someone gave them a job, and they are needed because we need hands in order to continue being the #1 economy in the world. So why don't we do something Solomonic, and let's break the baby into two. No path to citizenship in my law, no amnesty, no path ever. Just bring them out of the shadows, make them pay a fine for 7 years. That is billions of dollars to the Treasury. Make them give us 1% of their salary over 7 years. No federal programs, no health insurance. And then they can go back home for Christmas. They can come back, continue working, buying homes, paying taxes, and contributing to the economy.
Okay. First of all, she says, why don't we split something Solomonic and split the baby in two? I don't know if she was being metaphorical. In 1 Kings 3, you guys can read it. That's not actually what happened. But anyway, that's a whole separate biblical issue. First of all, Maria Elvira Salazar, let me tell you exactly how this is going to work. If you pass this ridiculous Dignity Act, this is what will happen. Every illegal will claim that they have been here for more than 5 years, thus ending all deportation in real time. You see, Maria, she's lying to you. Maria is deceiving you. Congresswoman Elvira Salazar is a snake on this topic. I just got to be honest. Because she's like, oh, we're going to have some dignity. No. This is not the Dignity Act. This is the Stop Deportation Act of 2025. So imagine if you've been here for 3 years. To say you've been here for 5 years, that's an easy fib. That is an easy lie. All of a sudden, a deportation officer knocks on your door and they have removal orders. And our record keeping is a joke. It is a fraud. And all of a sudden someone says, no. Cinco años. That's all they have to say. Cinco años. And all of a sudden, boom, the deportation officer has to go put them through a whole other rigmarole. Our record keeping is a joke because we have intentionally sabotaged it. We intentionally let people lie. I'm not even getting to the merits of how bad her idea is. I'm getting down to the technical enforcement problem of what Maria Elvira Salazar, the amnesty czar of Congress, is saying. What she is saying here basically is that all of a sudden we go get hands on someone that has been here for 2 years, under the threshold of what she considers to be there. And all they have to do, they have to say the magic words. Remember, the hocus pocus words to get into America under Biden was amnesty. Asylum. Those were the hocus pocus words to be able to get to your travel agent from Expedia.com, which Border Patrol was. Now the average words is all they have to say is two things in Spanish. Cinco años. If they say that, it's the secret password to stop all deportation. Oh, but it's no pathway to citizenship. Oh, but it's worse than amnesty. It grinds mass deportations that you voted for to a halt. Let's go through the breaks, guys. I have more to say with this than we have micro. Let me go through the breaks.
back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. While President Trump continues calling the case involving Jeffrey Epstein a scam and a hoax, he appears to be responding to the public calls for the release of more information and documents. Taking to Truth Social, the president writing, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to the Jeffrey Epstein case, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. In the meantime, the commander-in-chief also leading the cavalry and pushing back against a report that then private citizen Donald Trump sent accused child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein a salacious birthday letter. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that in that letter, the president laid out several things, but clearly upset about this reporting. The president writing, the Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter supposedly to Epstein. These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did. And now I'm going to sue his ass off, he writes. Meantime, the White House says that President Trump is in good health after being diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. The condition, is said to be fairly common among older adults.
In the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit, and the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here.
And one of the president's most prominent critics will be leaving late-night television next May. CBS is canceling the late-night show with Stephen Colbert, saying that it's purely a financial decision and not related to the show's performance or content. The decision also comes after Colbert criticized CBS parent company for its $16 million settlement with President Trump over the edited 60 Minutes interview with then presidential opponent Kamala Harris.
Stops here. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Check out mypatriotsupply.com. You are 9 meals away from anarchy. So check it out right now at mypatriotsupply.com. That is mypatriotsupply.com. So take a look at it right now at mypatriotsupply.com. I think you guys will really enjoy it. A 3-month emergency food kit in case you need it. My Patriot Supply is offering an exclusive deal on this kit just for our listeners. Shop at mypatriotsupply.com/Kirk, mypatriotsupply.com/KARK. Portions of the Charlie Kirk Show are brought to you in part by My Patriot Supply, mypatriotsupply.com. Joining us now is the legendary Mike Rowe. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to start with cut 444, and we'll take it from there. Play cut 444.
We've been telling kids for 15 years to code. Learn to code, we said. Yeah, well, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming for the steam fitters or the pipe fitters or the HVAC. They're not coming for the electricians. You know, that Ideas Festival I was telling you about in Aspen, I sat there and listened to Larry Fink say we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years. Not hyperbole. This is me being the alarmist again.
Mike, that clip went so viral. Thank you for saying that. Tell us more about where you said it and the significance of your push to rebuild blue-collar America. Mike Rowe.
Thanks, Charlie. One of the craziest events I've ever attended, simply because of its import and I think the lack of coverage that it's gotten. This was the Energy and AI Summit convened in Pittsburgh a couple days ago by both sitting senators of that state. This was primarily David McCormick's event. He's the Republican, but John Fetterman was there, the Democrat, along with hundreds of people and 30 or 40 of the CEOs of the biggest companies in the country. And the president was there. I was on the stage with the president and 30 CEOs as they pledged $92 billion to create a bunch of jobs in the energy sector, specifically in Pennsylvania, for the purposes of building data centers, which are basically AI factories, as we know. And this was a big deal. And I mean, everybody was there. And I think I got invited to sort of remind the crowd that creating jobs is different than creating enthusiasm for jobs. And, you know, I'm kind of a Debbie Downer in a situation like that, because I think a lot of people still cling to this idea that the way to get people back to work is to create jobs or create more opportunity. But that kind of collapses under its own weight when you look at 7.6 million open jobs at the moment, including 500,000 open jobs in manufacturing. So in general, Charlie, my message was, look, I was rooting for Obama in 2009 when he promised 3 million shovel-ready jobs in his Highway Infrastructure Act. But I said at the time, very publicly, you're going to have a tough time selling 3 million shovel-ready jobs to a country that is not all that enthused about picking up a shovel. And I worry, too, today with this president, if he succeeds, and I'm rooting for him, too, I want to see reshoring. I want to see this reindustrialization in this country, this manufacturing renaissance. But he's going to create a couple million jobs if he pulls this off. And we're living in a world and in a moment where we got 500,000 jobs in manufacturing right now that we can't fill. So that's kind of why I was there in the only suit and tie that I actually own, testifying.
I was shocked to see you dressed like a banker, Mike Rowe. I wasn't even sure what to think of it. I said, what is he doing? Some sort of like a merger and acquisition deal? It was incredible. But Mike, look at that. Mike Rowe as a banker. I said, this is new.
The president looked at me and said, Mike Rowe, I didn't recognize you in that getup. And I said, well, Mr. President, you know, all my other suits are rubber, if it makes you feel any better.
I love it. So I want to dive into this for a second. And Mike, you deserve such credit, and I cite you all the time. As you know, I am a outspoken critic of the current college model. I didn't go to college. I represent a lot of blue collar workers who are fans of our show because I try to give a voice to that portion of the country. But part of the problem, and we call them the muscular class on the show, as you know, Mike, part of the problem are parents around the country would rather have their kid go into debt to study sociology at, Wellesley than to go work construction. Can you speak to that? Part of that needs to be a cultural change for specifically suburban America. If their son says, Mom, I want to be an electrician, they should applaud that. They should celebrate it. They should encourage it because they actually might have better character, a better financial balance sheet, less debt, and greater job opportunities than studying communications at University of Illinois. Mike Rowe.
Well, to be charitable about it, I'm sympathetic to parents who are desperately trying not to screw their kids up. There's no playbook for this, of course, and parents want to offer good advice. They don't want to mess it up. They're desperate for an instruction manual. But we fall into this cookie cutter world where, politicians in particular, but lots of other people too, speak very broadly and paint with a real broad brush. And so a lot of parents who really don't know any better have been told from the get-go that the best path for the most people is the most expensive path and that their kids are screwed if they don't take that path. Therefore, surprise, surprise, universities have been able to charge whatever they want, essentially, because the feds have opened up a bottomless pile of free money, and we have collectively encouraged a whole generation to borrow whatever it takes to fulfill their dreams. So it's not one person doing a really foolish thing. It's a lot of people standing by watching a lot of dumb things happen, including, and perhaps especially, the removal of shop class from high school. That really put us on a road, Charlie, a bad road. And, it didn't just impact the widening skills gap. it removed from view any optical proof that a regular kid could have that these muscular jobs exist. Walking from English to math class and sticking your head in the metal shop and seeing that image right there. At least you could get a look at something that resembled work. But we took it all out. We just arbitraged it right out of the whole process. And so parents were left with this idea that there was really only one path for their kid. And if their kid couldn't take that path, everything else, including that guy welding two pipes together, was some sort of vocational consolation prize. Well, the chickens have come home to roost. AI, as I said in that clip, is coming for the coders. It's not coming for that guy. That guy's job is secure, and he's making mid-six figures, and that's the message.
Well, and this is
to shout.
So yes, I love that. So I want to zero in on that because that's so important. So number one, I can speak from personal experience. I've never really been into crafts or shop, just not my focus or emphasis. But I went to school at Wheeling High School in the suburbs of Chicago, and we had a huge automotives and shop class. However, it was always treated as if those were kind of like the secondary kids. Like those are the kids that they're not in the AP classes, and they're not the ones that are going to be getting the good jobs. And it was kind of looked down upon. Again, it wasn't said, as audibly, but it was a vibe. It was definitely the perspective that we were given that, come on, you're going to, you're going to shop class. What you're kind of like beneath the surface. So that we need to change that. But I want to just, in the 3.5 minutes we have in this segment, because it's the most important thing, we could talk about the vibes and the cultural stuff forever. Can you go through the numbers, Mike Rowe? How many of these muscular jobs are going to be necessary? How many AI jobs are going to be lost? And how many job openings are there right now in America that pay a decent wage, that require a little bit of skill, a little bit of training, and a lot of hard work? What is the current economic number showing us?
I can tell you what I know. I don't have a crystal ball, obviously, so I'm not sure exactly how this is going to play out. But in real time right now, we have 7.6 million open jobs, the vast majority of which do not require a 4-year degree. They require training. Within that cohort, we've got another 482,000 jobs that are open in manufacturing right now. I can't tell you definitively what they pay and what kind of path you're going to get on if you jump into that end of the pool, because state by state, it varies. This is the thing, Charlie. It's a trap. We want to be able to say, this is what a welder makes. Well, I've trained 2,500 welders. Many of them are making well into the six figures. I just talked to a guy the other day who came back from the Gulf of Oman, underwater welding, $300,000 a year tax-free. Okay. Now, there are also welders in this country making $55,000, $60,000 in Louisiana and Ohio. So it's difficult, right? But here's what gets lost. And here's what I'll leave you with, because I know you got to go to a break. People talk about welders and electricians and steam fitters and pipe fitters as workers, period. The vast majority of small businesses we have in this country were formed by men and women, but mostly men, who mastered a skill that was in demand and then went on to buy a couple of vans and hire their buddy, maybe a plumber, maybe a couple HVAC guys, maybe some electricians, and now they have a mechanical contracting company and they're doing a few $1 million a year. Those stories need to be told as well, because even though that event I was just at, that was all about the macro economy. That was macro works. I'm micro works, right? And I don't want to lose sight of the individual. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that mastering a skill that's in demand can still take the right person with a modicum of entrepreneurial spirit and a little bit of ambition. It'll put that person on a road, and that road leads to some place that looks an awful lot like prosperity.
MikeRoweWorks.org. That is MikeRoweWorks.org. And thank you, Mike, for celebrating and, dare I say, giving the dignity that so many of these people deserve. They are looked down upon so often, and they're the ones that make the entire economy work. And as you say, Larry Fink says we need 500,000 new electricians. He's not saying that we need 500,000 new sociologists.
No, he's not.
That's not the contention, right?
Right.
So hold that thought. I could see you want to chime in there, because let's talk about that, because there's this beacon being sent out by corporate America. Hey, we need 500,000 electricians. We need 250,000 pipe fitters. We need, carpenters. We need welders. No one is begging you for more sociologists. That demand does not exist. The credential might exist in the community you come from, but the economy is not asking for more of it. Donewithdebt.com. Let me share a faster and smart, easy way to get out of debt. It's called Done With Debt. They're not like other debt relief companies. They don't push loans or bankruptcy on you. Done With Debt are legendary negotiators who go head to head with your credit card and loan companies. They have one goal: to drastically reduce or eliminate your debt altogether. Unlike those others, Done With Debt moves lightning fast. Most clients see more money in their pocket month one, but a word to the wise: hurry, because some of their brilliant debt erasing strategies are time sensitive. Go to donewithdebt.com. Do not make another bill payment until you talk with a Done With Debt strategist. It is free. So go to donewithdebt.com. That is donewithdebt.com. So take a look at it right now at donewithdebt.com. So please take a look at it right now, donewithdebt.com. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. We'll be right back.
Patriots love him. Leftists hate him. Nobody ignores him. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. And subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. We had an amazing student action summit this last weekend. I want to point your attention to microworks.org. That is microworks.org. You guys can find out a ton of information on how you can also get a career in a high-quality job. Look, what I love about Mike Rowe, we'll welcome Mike Rowe back in about a minute here. What I love is that he's very real. He's real that this is tough, gritty work. And his show, Dirty Jobs, was just one of my favorite shows growing up. And it's very real. But you know what? And I'm going to ask Mike Rowe about this, because I know he wanted to chime in on this if we have time, which is, I know that a lot of people that work in these trades, they're very fulfilled. It's tough work. It is physically exhausting, but they can see their work come to a place of completion, and they're the backbone of this great country. And isn't it ironic that the people who kind of snobbily went around saying learn to code while they were getting their communications and sociology degrees, they're the ones that are going to be now looking for jobs, and the ones that they look down upon, the smelly carpenter, is going to be making more money than ever. Stay right there. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Mike Rowe is with us. Mike, sorry I cut you off because of the break. You wanted to chime in about we don't need more sociology degrees.
Well, I want to agree with you, but make one other point vis-a-vis macro and micro. On a macro works level, you're 100% right. The country is not reeling or freaking out over a lack of sociologists or philosophers. But the individual message is and always will be a bit more nuanced. And you just reminded me of that line from Marco Rubio when he was running for office back in 2015, I guess it was. And he said our country needs more welders and fewer philosophers. And of course, he's right, but he's not correct. What we need, I believe, on an individual level, are more welders who can talk intelligently about Nietzsche and Descartes, right? I mean, you didn't go to college, but you're educated, Charlie, and you're curious, and you've got a better liberal arts background than really most liberal arts students that I've ever met. But it's equally true as well that we'd be better off as a people with more philosophers who could run an even bead and have a conversation, right, about the muscular trades. Agree. So I don't want to be the guy who paints with too broad a brush, but I certainly agree with you. When you talk, when you hear from a billionaire like Larry Fink freaking out over 500,000 empty slots and electricians, you start to get it. And if you're me, not a week goes by where I don't hear from the American industrial base or the maritime base. They need 140,000 welders for our submarines. And the automotive industry, who needs 80,000 people in collision repair, and energy, who's 700,000. So, yeah, a memo has gone out. The C-suite are paying attention, and that's good news.
So in closing here, Mike, I know that you're doing a great job of this. How do the biggest impediment is the cultural one. How then do we overcome this kind of cultural gap where so many are still not, I know I asked the question previously, but let me rephrase it and reiterate it because it's very important. I'm going to ask you plainly, how then do we make parents comfortable with their kids entering into these trades? How do we make it socially and culturally acceptable?
A, it will take time. B, it's a multi-front war. There are a couple of things that I've seen work. Actually, I take that back. There's only one thing I've seen that actually moves the needle, both with parents, guidance counselors, which are also important, and of course the kids themselves, which is the most important cohort. And that is honest, authentic conversations with people who look like them and talk like them, and who have mastered a skill that's in demand and who are prospering as a result. At MicroWorks, I spend most of my time now trying to find people that we assisted 5-6 years ago and then Zoom with them, just like we're doing right now, or meet with them in person and get their stories. What I said to the crowd in Pittsburgh was, look, guys, you just committed $92 billion with a B. I was in the room. I see what you're doing. For the love of God, carve off a fraction of a percentage of that and allocate it to tell the stories of the people in the industries you hope to reinvigorate. I will help you if I can. You know, we're modest by foundation levels, but I'll give away $5 million next month in work ethic scholarships. Give me some money so I can tell those stories from sea to shining sea, and the needle will move. So that's the short answer. The Evidence Demands a Verdict. That's a terrific book you would love. Josh McDowell wrote it years ago, but it applies now. The evidence is on our side. The proof is in the pudding. We simply have to tell it, and then parents will get it. But it will take time. I wish I could flip a switch. I can't.
MikeRoweWorks.org. Mike, come back anytime. You are doing phenomenal work. And
thanks, Charlie. You too.
I think I'll get over seeing you in a suit. I think I'll get over it, but we'll see what happens.
I don't know, man. It's seared into my retina. I don't even know how to. You wouldn't believe I've got 200 emails from people who think I've, I don't know, gone over to the dark side or something. It's funny.
Don't worry. He's not working for private equity, everybody. Don't worry. Mike, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Email us, he's the greatest, freedom@charliekirk.com. He has been so consistent for my entire life on this theme, and I really think that he is made for this moment. I really do. I think his voice is more important than ever. There are millions of young people, primarily young men, that are looking for purpose, and they don't know what to do other than just go get good grades. Go get good grades. And then they end up becoming, a lawyer, a consultant, and then maybe AI takes their job away. We're going to figure this out. Micro's a big piece of it. Second hour coming up. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com.
America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Getter.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth, and we're doing it on Getter
every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
To this Real America's Voice news break, I'm Terrence Bates. Let's face it, our healthcare system just isn't working for many Americans. From skyrocketing costs to chronic illnesses that never truly get better, millions are left feeling powerless, sick, and unheard. But a movement is growing, one that says that it's time to take our health back into our own hands. It's called Make America Healthy Again. For many, it starts with rejecting chemical quick fixes and choosing natural supplements. Dr. Holly Lucille is a naturopathic doctor. She joins me now to talk about cleaner alternatives that really support your health. Doc, always good to see you.
So much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, happy to have you. Talk about Pure Health Research and some of the products it offers.
Yeah, so exactly what you said. What I love about Pure Health Research, manufacturing company, they walk their talk, right? No shady additives, no filler ingredients, no cutting corners. They say yes to clinical research, non-GMO ingredients, and U.S.-based manufacturing. So it's everything that MAHA movement is about: clean, natural, science-backed support that helps the body heal itself. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask, because when you said MAHA, it kind of sparked a question. Do you see MAHA really changing the paradigm as it relates to public health in this country? Is it already starting to take hold?
It's a great question, and I absolutely, certainly in the circles that I run in, I think what we see is a lot of opportunity, and I think a lot of people are moving and leaning into this, and so I'm just so excited because, I always say when people ask, like, do you have a primary healthcare provider or a PCP, or primary care provider? And I think everybody should raise their hand because we should primarily be in charge of providing care for ourselves. Right? We've got great teams of doctors and practitioners, but we really have to take our power back. And I think this movement is helping us do that.
But the reality is so many of us, and I'm going to include myself in that, are fairly ignorant. Something hurts here and you're just like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I know something is wrong. And so that's why so many people go and seek a PCP. How can one educate him or herself a little bit more to take more control of their own health?
Yeah, I mean, listen, your doctors work for you, your practitioners work for you. So whatever it is you're needing, I think that's important to understand. And also the I statement, I oftentimes hear people say, oh, well, they told me to take this, or they put me on this. Rather, you would say, my doctor prescribed this, I actually looked into it, and I'm choosing to take it. That just allows us to have a little bit more power about everything that's out there and really take back control. And then, of course, you've got Pure Health Research to help as well.
And that, of course, brings us back to the supplements that Pure Health Research and other supplements that are out there, but let's focus on Pure Health Research. Talk about the various sorts of supplements that are available to our viewers.
Yeah, so I love when you go to their website, purehealthresearch.com, they have over 40 targeted formulas. We've talked about liver health formula a lot on the show because, listen, your liver is your detox powerhouse and it's constantly under attack. So this formula really helps reduce that fat buildup. It boosts metabolism. It helps restore energy. They've had over 2 million bottles sold. And the thing that I love too, if you go to their website, you know what we do when we want to buy something? What do we do these days? We look at other people's experiences, right? And so the testimonials, I'm like, hey, you can take what I say, but take what other people who have actually used these products say. That's where the sweet spot is. Another one, I would say lymph system support. For me, if the liver's doing its job and we're supporting it, it's like it sets the garbage outside. And then the lymph system support grabs that garbage and takes it away. So if you're feeling swelling or fatigue, your lymph system might be stagnant. I see it all the time. And the last one I'll talk about is the blood sugar formula. During our pandemic, we found out that only 12% of the United States population was metabolically healthy, able to keep that blood sugar stable, not lean into a chronic disease called metabolic syndrome. And so that really supports blood sugar. It affects energy, mood, metabolism, even brain and heart health. So those three are kind of my top favorites right now.
All right. And if you'd like more information, folks, the information is right there on your screen, purehealthresearch.com. You can go there and find all the information you need.
Welcome back. Today for Hour 2, everybody, I have another amazing interview for you on our members-only lounge at the Student Action Summit with our own border czar, Tom Homan. He was such a hit at SAS, and everyone loved him. I know you guys are going to really enjoy this interview. Email me, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and let me know what you think of this interview with Tom Homan. The great Tom Homan, the legendary Tom Homan.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, and you know, there's been a lot of stuff in the news, but the most important stuff has actually not been talked about this week, which is that there is a slow motion insurrection happening on our cities. And again, there's so much stuff happening. We have the flooding in Texas, which is terrible. Tom, bring us up to speed. What happened in California? There was a marijuana farm that was raided. Minors were working at it. And is it correct that an illegal alien discharged a weapon at ICE officers?
All true. So we're serving criminal search warrants. I mean, it wasn't your normal, like what the media want to call immigration raid. We're serving criminal warrants, a part of a criminal investigation into, illegal weed farm, child trafficking, labor violations. So we're there enforcing laws of this country. And the protesters showed up in force, assaulting officers. And if you went and actually asked any of the protesters, what are you protesting? They couldn't tell you. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They just say hatred on ICE. Hatred on ICE that is perpetuated by members of Congress. So if a member of Congress can call them racist, they can call them the Gestapo, then, these nuts in the public, it just emboldens them to go out there and take on ICE, which is, they'll lose.
Yes, they will. And so at this specific incident, a guy started shooting at ICE officers. Have we found out who that person is?
FBI is investigating it. I know a little bit, but I really can't talk about it right now, but they're deep in it.
So what did we learn about this specific marijuana facility that was so egregious? They were using child slave labor or something akin to it?
They had unaccompanied alien children that crossed under Joe Biden. Some of the ones that he released and he lost. So they're working, and
And so this is important. Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. This is what the media calls a farm. So you know how there's been a lot of controversy around farms the last couple of weeks, right? So at this farm were illegal aliens that were how old, Tom? 12?
Yeah, they're young teenagers.
So no, this is not what you think it is working on farms. These are illegal 12-year-olds that come and they're producing marijuana.
Right.
Illegally.
And we're continuing investigation on the interviews. Were they even being paid? Or were they paying off smuggling fees? How many hours were they working? Look, I've said this forever, and I truly believe this. I've been doing this since 1984. No one hires an illegal alien out of the goodness of their heart. They hire them because they work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition who has U.S. citizen employees and drive labor rates down. So a deep dive investigation, interviews are being these kids will have. They'll do a forensics interview, and we'll uncover the trafficking issue and try to find those responsible for smuggling these kids and trafficking them, and we'll prosecute.
And so, more broadly on the deportation project, you recently said, I don't want to misquote you, Tom, and you're doing an amazing job. Isn't Tom just doing incredible? He's just phenomenal. You recently said the goal is to get to 7,000 deportations a day. Is that? Am I quoting you correctly?
What I said was the media's out there great, losing their minds because there's the goal set of 3,000 a day. And they asked me, is that even possible? Isn't that racist? I said 3,000 a day is nothing. Because if you do the math, we would have to arrest 7,000 a day for the rest of the administration just to remove those that Biden released in the country. You're not talking about the 15 million plus already here. So 3,000 days, it's a drop in the bucket. And with the big, beautiful bill now passed, just watch and see what happens.
And so 7,000 a day would be like 2.5 million people a year. Can you talk about the self-deportations as well? Because if history shows for every one person that we deport, there could be upwards of 10 people that self-deport. Is that about right?
The study's been done showing over close to 1 million have already left the country on their own or through the app. And I think a big part of that is big part of that is what we're doing right now. We got over 1,000 arrest teams on the streets of this nation arresting illegal aliens every day. Of course, prioritizing the public safety threats, national security threats first. But they see, now you can wait and let us find you and deport you, or you can leave on, get your affairs in order and leave on your own and make yourself available for other opportunities in the future if they come up. But I think consequences matter. Bad behavior doesn't change unless there's consequences, and we're showing consequences.
So I'll tell you a quick anecdote. So a local church that Eric and I go to, it's a Catholic church. I'm not Catholic. She was raised Catholic, but we just like going there, and a great community and fellowship to go and pray, and it's great. And it's beautiful. I love beautiful churches. I like beautiful things. I don't like going to church in Costco. Sorry, I don't. So I don't like going to a Home Depot to worship. Call me old-fashioned. So they're doing this major marble project at this church. Major, right? And so the priest who I know, we were walking in one weekday just to go pray. And the marble project was half finished. And I said, oh, hey, what's going on here? He said, oh, I got to tell you a story. He said, so the original contractor started this effort, and he had to stop at the beginning because all of his labor self-deported. And so then he was super worried that he wasn't going to be able to fulfill the project. He found Americans within 48 hours that did a better job for only $2 to $3 more an hour. And it's all legal, and it's all American, and the job will be finished at the exact same time. Everybody, don't believe the lie. We can get this. And that right there is a glaring first-person example, because we're so, oh, who's going to be the stonemasons, and no one's going to want to work on the roofs, and no one's going to. We have grown addicted to illegal migrant labor in this country.
You know, I got a similar story. So a few years ago, I had to put a new roof on my house because of a storm. I had to call 5 or 6 different companies before I found a company that guaranteed me a legal workforce. But while I was getting the bids, the father and son showed up. And they're hoping, I didn't need a whole roof replacement. They're hoping just to repair it. But once they saw it, they said, no, we can't do this. And he told me a story. He had a successful roofing company, had over 20 U.S. citizens employees that he put on a roof at $20 an hour. And he lost the business because he couldn't win any contracts. So other companies putting illegal aliens on the roof for $7 an hour. He just couldn't win a contract. So now him and his son just go out and do roof repairs. He laid off 20 U.S. citizen employees. That happens every day across this country.
Every day. And this idea, like, look, I will acknowledge that some of the youth of America, there's some of these jobs that they don't want to do. But I reject the premise in a country of 330 million people that we have maxed out the labor potential of this country. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it, okay? You do not, and what I will buy, though, is that, yes, if you don't raise wages, then there will be a problem. But we're not talking about going from $20 an hour to $85 an hour. We're talking about minor adjustments on the wage scale, which, by the way, I would personally, as an employer, by the way, we only hire legal Americans at Turning Point USA. The fact that I have to say that is ridiculous. We use E-Verify. But as a citizen, I want to make sure the workforce is not just legal, but I feel an obligation to fulfill the mandate of my fellow countrymen, because, Tom, you're getting at something. Is it correct that the thrust of hiring illegal labor is that they actually don't want to pay Americans just a normal wage?
Absolutely. Like I said, they overwork them, underpay them. And I agree with you. We have plenty of workforce here. If they get out of their mother's basement and stop protesting ICE and go get a job, they could actually add to our economy.
Well, and even beyond that, I hate racial politics, I really do, but we have Brexit, and Black America has been treated terribly by the Democrat Party, awful. You want to know who's been treated the worst by mass migration is Black America. And how many Black Americans who used to do a lot of these jobs happily, carpentry, woodworking, and all of a sudden you bring in a steady flow of illegal labor, and people say, well, they just work harder. I guess I could sympathize for I'm sure that at the extremes that's true, right? Would you agree, Tom, at the extremes? But at the median, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I think that this idea that you need to get maximal corporate return even though you don't have a nation, it's been a bad bargain for us, actually. It's that we're a nation of strangers. We don't know how many people are actually in America. We have no idea who they are. They're endangering our communities. But we save a couple bucks an hour on wages. Stay tuned for more with Tom Homan, but first I want to tell you about Z-Factor. Check out Z-Factor right now if you guys want to be able to get a better night's sleep. Go to relieffactor.com. I know a lot of different people that have not been able to get good sleep recently, but if you want to pass out as soon as your head hits the pillow, I encourage you guys to go to relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com. 100% drug-free Relief Factor, and it is Z-Factor is the way that you guys can be able to get a better night's sleep. So check it out right now. That is relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com.
Learn more in 3 hours than 4 years at a woke university. And it's free. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Now I want to tell you guys about our amazing partners, YRefi. Go to yrefi.com. If you have private student loan debt, and if you are suffering under private student loan debt, you guys have got to check out YRefi at yrefi.com. I guarantee you, somebody in this audience right now is suffering under private student loan debt. Who are you out there? Is it maybe you know someone? Maybe it's a niece, maybe it's a nephew, maybe it's a sister, maybe it's a brother. There's over $300 billion of privately held student loan debt in this country. And so if somebody in this audience is suffering under private student loan debt, then make the courageous move, the smart move, and go to yrefi.com. That is YREFY.com. They're not a debt settlement company. It may not be available in all 50 states. So check it out right now at yrefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Be right back, everybody. back. Here's more with border czar Tom Homan. Become a member right now, members.charliekirk.com, to watch this full interview completely ad-free.
I remember when I was another example, when I was ICE director, this a few years back, but we actually did a worksite enforcement operation on a plant in Chicago that made sausage. We arrested a lot of illegal aliens there. Within 2 weeks, they were back open, replaced by black labor. Gave them more jobs. So that's just one example. So you're exactly right. A lot of them have been displaced because of illegal immigration and cheap labor.
So Tom, let me ask you then. So we saw this in Nebraska, where there was a meatpacking facility, raided it, all the illegals were arrested, line out the door for Americans to get the job the next day. Why don't we hold the employers accountable? Like, why don't we have? Why don't we start arresting business owners that are knowingly arresting illegal aliens? Aren't they breaking the law?
They are, and just
federal law.
And just a couple weeks ago, I gave a direction to ICE that I want to see many, many, many more criminal prosecutions at work sites.
I love it.
Of employers.
Of the people that know they are processing fraudulent Social Security numbers.
We're going to prosecute not only an employer, but if you use a false Social Security card, a false green card, you're going to get prosecuted too. Zero tolerance.
I love it. And look, and I think we should acknowledge this. Not in every sector are we going to be able to refill the workforce overnight. It's not going to happen. There will be hiccups, there will be bumps, but I think it's worth it as a national project because eventually we will solve it. And understand this, that in agriculture, everyone talks about farms, farms, farms. Okay, do you know that our reliance on migrant labor has largely actually held back the farms from automating, investing in robotics, and actually becoming more efficient? Because they don't want to spend their money on that. They could just keep on hiring illegal migrant labor. It's actually held us back significantly. But we're told, Tom, that all the crops are going to rot in the field if we do mass deportations.
Look, I know that the president made some comments about farmers. I know Department of Labor, DHS, and Department of Agriculture are all getting together talking about possible options. But and I'm not going to get into the president on this, but I can tell you this: there will be no amnesty. Can't happen. When you reward illegal behavior, it is not going to stop. We're nation laws. We need finally say enough. We're done.
Yes.
So I understand the policy discussions. I'll get involved with that this week. But I talked to the president, and he said there will be no amnesty.
He said the same thing to me on a phone call a couple days ago. No amnesty, period. And he's been clear on that. But I want you in those policy discussions to come back with a message from Tampa. Because if they even play footsie with amnesty, this coalition will be more angry than anything that's happened over the last decade. This is the core campaign promise. We finally got the one big beautiful bill. And all of a sudden we're now flirting with jeopardizing our coalition. So I want you to just bring that memo back to the policy discussion. They have not seen the MAGA base so animated. I mean, we are not even at yet removing all the Biden people. And let's play this out, Tom. And the great Stephen Miller and I had a great conversation about this. So let's say somebody says, well, if you've been here for 15 years, you can stay. And you get legal residency. Sounds common sense. Okay, fine, sure. But let's talk at this in practice before we even get to the policy. Tom, do we have any record of when any illegal has come across the border?
No.
So therefore, if you've been here for 15 years, you can stay, wouldn't every illegal just say the magic words, hocus pocus, I've been here for 15 years? And even if you could prove it otherwise in court.
Well, that happened in 1986. I was there
Simpson,
in 1986.
Mazzoli, talk about that.
Well, during IRCA in 1986, or what they call a special assault program, special agriculture worker program. I was a special agent at the time, and I conducted criminal investigations. I can tell you over 85% of those applications were fraudulent. He just went to a farmer, gave him $100, he gave you a letter saying, yeah, he worked for me for 90 days from this day and that day. There is no check and balances on that, so it's just ripe for fraud. And that was a failure of the 1986 amnesty, and it will happen again.
And on top of even the fraud, guys, what it would do then is it would suspend all deportations in real time. Because all they'd have to do is say the magic words, and you'd have to adjudicate it and it would backlog the courts, and you wouldn't be able to have hands on any illegal alien, just as a practical matter.
But we gotta go beyond the time in the country, what they're going to claim, what time they have in the country. But we also got to talk the false narrative being pushed by the media that we're deporting U.S. citizens. We're not deporting U.S. citizens. I said this from day one. If you're in the country illegally and you choose to have a child, that's on you. And when you get an order of deportation, it's parenting 101. Either you take the child with you or leave him with a relative, the other spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child in this country doesn't make you immune from our laws. Because if that's the message we send to the whole world, you're never going to fix this problem.
Yes.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. We're monitoring a developing situation out of Los Angeles where at least 3 people are dead, 1 hurt, following an explosion at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Training Center. The blast happened around 7:30 this morning. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming the death, saying that federal authorities responded to the scene and are currently investigating what happened. The L.A. City Fire Department, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive Agents, along with the LAPD bomb squad, are all at the scene at this hour. While investigators are still trying to get to the bottom of what happened, the L.A. Times is reporting that a bomb squad was moving an explosive ordnance at the facility when the blast happened. Employees describe hearing a massive explosion followed by glass shattering and screaming. All of this went down in a parking lot where the sheriff's bomb squad keeps its vehicles. The Trump administration is continuing its crackdown on illegal immigration. Just before walking into the White House earlier today, Border Czar Tom Homan laying out the plan.
We're going to focus on sanctuary cities, make them priority. And why is that? Because we know they're a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day because they're sanctuary cities. They're not honorary detainers. We don't have that problem in most of Texas and Florida, for instance. So we can take resources from those areas and put them in areas where we know there's a problem. So I've said for weeks, we're going to flood the zone in sanctuary cities. You're going to see a record number of agents in the neighborhoods and a record number of agents at work site. If they don't give us the criminal alien, the safety and security of county jail, then we're going to go in the neighborhood and find them because we're going to do the job. If we can't find them in the neighborhood, we'll find them in the work site.
Homan also says he, alongside other immigration officials, is working to find more beds to house illegals who are in the deportation process. In fact, Homan says that is a priority right now. He also says that given that it can take months from the time of an arrest to deportation, more beds are needed to keep up with the demand. The Border Czar also points out that there will be no amnesty for those in the country illegally. And finally, the White House says President Trump is in good health and good spirits after being diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. The condition, by the way, is said to be fairly common among older adults. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates.
Of the MAGA doctrine and president of Turning Point USA. Here's Charlie Kirk.
We're back. Email me, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. Before we get to more of Tom Homan, by the way, Tom Homan is going very viral on TikTok right now. I want to remind you guys that one of the main reasons that the youth vote was able to move in President Donald Trump's direction, one of the main reasons that we were able to reach so many young people, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of young people, is because we decided to go viral on TikTok. You guys can learn more about TikTok's economic impact. Small business owners from across America use TikTok. It's TikTokeconomicimpact.com. That is TikTokeconomicimpact.com, where you guys can learn more about their powerful impact that they are making in communities across the country. That is TikTokeconomicimpact.com. We post with regularity on TikTok. We do very well on TikTok. We're reaching the next generation around values of Jesus and America first and liberty and freedom. So check it out right now at TikTokeconomicimpact.com. More with Tom Homan. And by the way,
so like I said, what can you do? Can you do a mass deportation without separating families? We deport them together.
Yes, and by the way, the kid technically, I get why we need to get rid of birthright citizenship. It's a terrible, it's awful. I'm not optimistic the Supreme Court's probably going to wuss out on that, but I hope we get a victory there. But I guess the kid's still a U.S. citizen. But you're right, the whole mass migration project post-1986. So for those that don't know, Reagan, worst thing Reagan did, by the way, by far. He was a good president in a lot of ways. This was his biggest mistake, by far. Would you agree, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Urkel was a mistake.
Yeah, and so he comes out, Simpson-Mazzoli, we're going to give amnesty, a pathway to citizenship for anyone that worked on a farm all the way up to 1985. And then we're going to have all this border enforcement stuff. None of the border enforcement stuff actually materialized.
No.
But all the amnesty.
And none of the work site materialized.
None of the work sites. So all these promises of how tough we were going to be, none of it happened, but all the amnesty happened. But here's the kicker. And Tom, you're a government official, so I don't know if you can comment on this, but I can, which is that we were promised that all Hispanics would vote for Republican if we gave them amnesty. And I want you to understand this because I hear this from sometimes the ruling class. What happened is actually Hispanics got more Democrat every single year until Donald Trump came. And he actually won back Hispanics by promising mass deportations. So if you want to win over Hispanics, you actually talk about lawful deportation because the legal Hispanics are sick of people that have cut in line, stolen Social Security numbers, lied to the system. Am I correct on that, Tom?
When I was there, I was an agent at the time. I'm old. I started this in 1994.
I love this. Before I was alive.
But I was an agent during that time. I remember I get pissed off a lot, but I remember being pissed off back then because there was so much fraud going on. And CIS, who was taking, well, it was equal to CS at the time, that were taking the applications, ICE officers at the time, INS Special Agent, weren't even allowed to enter the building to grab the fraudulent applications to take action on them. They totally separated the benefits from investigations. So even though there's 90% fraud, we weren't allowed access to the government records. That's how bad Urkel was run.
And so then we fast forward and we had open border. Trump is the first one to not just say, let's close the border. By the way, Tom Homan deserves such credit. The border, we're not even talking about anymore. How many people crossed the southern border into the interior of the United States in May?
0 were released. Everybody that crossed was sent right back.
0. And so
I'll tell you a better number. The number that excites me the most. Under the Biden administration, they averaged 1,800 gotaways every day. Known gotaways. Every day. Because we had digital, we had video, drone traffic, sensor traffic. 1,800 a day on average. You know how many there was yesterday? 11. 11 too many, and we'll close that down. But we went from 1,800 to 11. And the crossings were 99. To 2,000 miles of the border, we had 99 crossing. How many got released? 0. How many got released last month? 0. How many the month before that? 0. We ended catch and release.
And Tom, you haven't spoken yet on stage, right?
No.
Okay. When you do, I hope you emphasize it, because a lot of people are, they're confused and they're fighting about stuff, and that's fine, that's healthy. But I hope everyone understands the securing of the southern border. If that's all President Trump does and he golfs for the next 4 years, that alone makes this all worth it. No, seriously, that at least buys us some time to have a nation again and to have a republic.
And having the most secure, right today, you have the most secure border in the history of this nation today. And what has that done? Fentanyl seizures have dropped in half. Sex trafficking women and children are decimated. Number of Americans dying from fentanyl has dropped significantly. Sex trafficking has decreased to a level we've never seen before. I mean, President Trump, by having a secure border, saves lives every day.
So this is now the key, and this is why Tom is so important. He's a hero. It would be very tempting and easy for us to avoid the big cities.
I know.
It's where all the drama. No, I know, but I want to build you up for it.
That ain't happening.
The cities is where you reclaim the country. That's actually where you exert dominion, because what they're doing is they're trying to be like, okay, you can do your raids in the rurals. Tom, are we going to avoid LA? Are we going to avoid Denver?
No, we're going to triple down, and we're going to triple down on them. And I said this. Right after we got in office, the mayor of Chicago said I wasn't welcome in Chicago. Guess where I was the next day? Chicago. And I'm going to Portland.
Oh, that'll be fun.
But President Trump, we talked about this. President Trump said it the other day. Sanctuary cities, we're going to prioritize sanctuary cities. We're going to send massive amount of agents to sanctuary cities because we know we have a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats back in the community every day. Like, we don't have that problem in Florida. Every sheriff in Florida is working with us. Good thanks to the great Governor DeSantis.
DeSantis is doing great.
So we'll take resources from Florida, we'll throw them in New York. We'll throw them in LA. We'll throw them in Portland. We'll throw them in Chicago. We'll throw them in Seattle. Every sanctuary city that wants to double down on ICE, we're going to triple down. We're going to flood the zone in the neighborhoods, flood the zone at work site. We're going to win this war because what we're doing is making this country safe every day. Every criminal, illegal alien, or public safety threat that we deport makes this country safe. And that's what we're going to continue doing. We're going to keep President Trump's promise to the American people. We're going to make this country safe again. We're going to enforce the immigration law without apology. And I don't give a
No, you're fine.
I did it once for you.
No, you're fine. We're not live. You're fine.
And look, I'll just say this. I take a lot of hate. I hit pieces on me every day, and I love them. Because I get tired, and when I read a hit piece, it'll throw gas in my fire. So I don't give a what people think about me. We're going to do this job. So the doxing of ICE agents is terrible. The assault on ICE agents are terrible. The attacks on me and my family, yeah, unfortunate. But guess what? We're not leaving. We're going to keep doing this job. We're going nowhere. So we're going to finish the job we started, and we're going to finish it to the last day of this administration, and hopefully on the next president, Republican president, we'll have 8 more years of doing it. We're going to clean the nation up.
Amen. So I love it. What does the big, beautiful bill mean for you and for your effort? What has now, it's passed, it's the big, beautiful law. What do now you have at your command to be able to reclaim the country?
Well, it does a lot of things. First of all, for the southern border, we're going to finish the wall. And not only finish the wall, we're going to finish the technology in the existing wall that Joe Biden stopped. He didn't just stop building the wall. He stopped putting the technology in the wall that made it a smart wall. So agents can talk to one another in dead zones. That we know when someone approaches the wall, climbs the wall, or tries to dig under the wall. It's also going to add technology to the port of entries. So we can still move legal trade through the port of entry as quick as possible, but still catch maximum amounts of contraband. On the interior, 10,000 new ICE agents. Never heard of that before. This is the biggest plus up in ICE we've seen in history of the agency. 10,000. Right now, we got 5,000 deportation officers, over 20 million illegal aliens in this country. That's a huge plus up. More boots on the ground. It's going to give us more detention beds. We're going to go to 50,000 beds to 100,000 beds. So we have plenty of room to put people there. We're going to increase the teams as soon as we can. Academy is already starting to roll out. We're going to move a lot of agents through that academy. More boots on the ground, more transportation contracts, more beds, more contractors to do jobs that don't require a badge and gun. It shouldn't take a badge and gun when someone comes in to report or to do arrest reports or processing. Let contractors do that and get that badge and gun on the street where we need them. We're going to keep focusing on public safety threats and national security threats. If you think the numbers look good now, just hold on tight.
So I think it's also worth mentioning, recently there was just an MS-13 leader arrested in Nebraska, and I don't even think we knew who he was or how he got it. I mean, and all of a sudden here he is, this guy that El Salvador has been looking. Do you know the case I'm talking about?
Yes. That shows the great vetting that the Biden administration claimed they did, which they did. Look, millions of illegal aliens were released in this country without proper vetting. And Secretary Mayorkas will stand on stage and say, oh, they're properly vetted. They're all properly vetted. That's a bunch of garbage because we don't have access to most countries' criminal data, if they even have a system like NCIC. With the Chinese and the Russians and people from Syria, do you really think those governments are sharing any data with us, especially national security data? These people weren't properly vetted, and that's why we're working so hard to find them, because they do pose the biggest national security vulnerability I've seen in my lifetime. What Joe Biden did to this country is the biggest national security vulnerability I've ever seen. We under Joe Biden, over 400 people on the terrorist watch list were arrested coming across the southern border. Under Trump, 45, 14. 14 compared to 400. But what scares me most is the 2 million plus gotaways. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Because you pay the cartel one amount of money to just get to the border, turn yourself in a green uniform, get a free airline ticket to the city of your choice, get a free hotel room, three meals a day, and work authorization. So why did 2 million people pay more not to get that free giveaway program? Because they didn't want to be arrested. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. They didn't want to be vetted. That should scare the hell out of everybody. It scares the hell out of me. Who were they? Why did they pay more to get away?
How do we fix the asylum scam? Because the asylum system is so gamed.
That's easy. They just, in the first interview on the border, the threshold's so low, the cartels teach you a couple of key phrases. Okay, you pass the first interview, you come in. But when you get to immigration court, the threshold of proof is much, much higher. So we're saying, hey, easy fix. The first interview threshold should equal the judicial threshold. And hold that, then, look, those that don't know, they keep calling these people, they're asylum seekers. They have a right to claim asylum. They got a right to see a judge. Yep. Yeah, okay. Well, here's the facts. Based on immigration court data over the last decade, 9 out of 10 people claim asylum at the border end up with an order removal. They're asylum cheaters because they're not escaping fear and persecution from their home government because of race, religion, political affiliation, or membership in a specific social group. They're coming here for a better life, and I get that, but it's not asylum. So when they keep yelling and screaming about asylum seekers, understand 90% of them are asylum cheaters, and while they're cheating the system and backing the system up by 5, 7, 9 years, there are actually thousands of people in this world that really do need our protection from their countries, and they're sitting in the back seat. So the asylum system needs to be fixed, needs to be addressed ASAP, because even though we're doing all the positive things right now, this can all be undone by a Democratic president, like Joe Biden did to the most secure border in my lifetime. So we got to get Congress, get off their and pass some legislation to fix the system.
Absolutely. Before we head into break, I want to tell you guys about Relief Factor. Check it out right now. I'm here in an undisclosed location going hiking and enjoying the beautiful weather, and I hope you guys are too, but there's nothing worse than back pain. It is so debilitating, nothing worse than knee pain or ankle pain. Get out of pain today with ReliefFactor.com. 100% drug-free Relief Factor can get you out of pain when you need it most. So go to ReliefFactor.com. That is ReliefFactor.com. 100% drug-free Relief Factor. So check it out right now at ReliefFactor.com.
American made. And darn proud of it. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Walk us through, I know I got to get you on stage here, Tom, but walk us through, there's been so much social media misinformation saying ICE is the modern Gestapo, they're going after U.S. citizens. What is the process of enforcement, and what should people know that the media is largely missing?
The vast majority of people we've arrested are criminals, public safety threats, and national security threats. Now, the media says, well, the percentage is lower than I'm claiming. Well, they don't count misdemeanors as crimes. They don't count taking a guy out of a county jail pending charges as a criminal. We do. If you're in a county jail, you're probably not a choir boy. So we count criminals as criminals. But the vast majority of people arrested are criminal aliens. That's just a stone cold fact. And what people need to understand, why is so many collaterals, non-criminals? Well, I'll tell you why, and I said this from day one. If you're a sanctuary city and you're going to release that criminal back into the community, we're going to go find him. And when we find him, we find others that aren't criminal targets, but they're in the country illegally. They're coming too, because we're going to enforce immigration law. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want: more collateral arrests, more agents in the street, and more worksite enforcement. If they want to push back against ICE, this is what's happening.
More with Tom Homan, I need to tell you guys about Hillsdale College. Hillsdale is America's greatest college. And if you want to take their Constitution 101 course, if you want to take their Constitution 201 course, the Federalist Papers course, their course on Winston Churchill, the course on Roman history, which of course Blake does not need, the course on the Federalist Papers, check out charlieforhillsdale.com. That is CHARLIE for Hillsdale.com. You see, charlieforhillsdale.com is a great way that you are able to take all their online online courses, including their latest course on totalitarian novels. This course is a game changer. It talks about what happens when societies descend into totalitarianism. It talks about 1984. It talks about Brave New World. It talks about how these phenomenal books, and also C.S. Lewis, where he wrote a phenomenal book as well about totalitarianism. It talks about what happens when a society loses its foot and its concentration on liberty. Hillsdale College is America's greatest college. That's right. Hillsdale College is the greatest college